I died to save the campus beauty, and after her rebirth, she pursued me. Chapter 1, Rebirth in the Classroom. The campus beauty pounces and hugs me strongly. Lin Ran, 34 years old, never imagined this. Years after sitting beside the campus beauty in high school, they were reunited. In the first second of meeting, he was hit by a massive truck. It was a night of heavy rain. When two huge, pale headlights suddenly shattered the night and pierced through the rain, the truck roared toward him. It seemed to be about to crash into the elegant woman holding an umbrella on the sidewalk ahead. Standing not far behind, Lin Ran almost instinctively rushed forward, pushing the woman forward with all his might, just in time before the truck could hit her. At that moment, the whole world seemed to fall into silence. Time slowed down, and the scene played out like a slow-motion film. The torrential rain in his view appeared frozen in place. Only the frightened woman, who had been pushed to the side of the road, suddenly turned her head in panic, her eyes meeting Lin Ran's through the rain, their gazes intersecting in mid-air. Lin Ran saw her face clearly. Beneath her black, smooth hair, there was an exquisite, breathtakingly beautiful face, mature, cold, yet stunningly radiant. In a panic, her lips parted slightly, and as if realizing something, she showed an expression of shock and urgency, opening her mouth to shout. At the same time, Lin Ran recognized her. Su Qingyan. The acknowledged campus beauty from Yunnan High School back then. Now a business queen, with a net worth in the billions, and a famous ice-cold goddess in the southern province. And also his former deskmate in high school. Destiny, so wonderful and unpredictable. This was the last thought that flashed in Lin Ran's mind. Then came the piercing sound of the brakes, growing louder, accompanied by the screeching tires, and the unfamiliar yet familiar woman's panicked cry. Don't! A wave of intense pain surged over him, and Lin Ran's world fell into darkness. His consciousness seemed to float away, drifting aimlessly in the dark for what felt like an eternity. Until, vaguely, he sensed a figure desperately moving toward him, reaching out a hand toward him. He instinctively reached out as well. The moment their hands touched, the darkness collapsed in an instant. Lin Ran suddenly woke up. He opened his eyes, looking around. He found himself in a bright and clean classroom. It was summer, and outside the window, cicadas were chirping and birds were flying. The ceiling fan above creaked as it worked hard to blow hot air, and the monotonous, hypnotic voice of the homeroom teacher at the podium made it impossible not to feel sleepy. Everything was so familiar, yet strangely unreal. The flood of memories surged over Lin Ran, making him finally realize the incredible miracle time had created for him. It was early summer in 2007. He was in his third year of high school at Yunnan High School. Time had turned back a full 16 years. He had been reborn. Perhaps it was all thanks to his brave act, which might have moved heaven itself. Lin Ran felt a mix of emotions, but more than anything, he was filled with excitement and joy. To live again. He could make up for many regrets and try to live a better life. In that case, he should probably thank his former deskmate, the campus beauty, who had unexpectedly caused his death upon their reunion after so many years. Oh, right. Deskmate. Lin Ran suddenly came to his senses, turning his head to look beside him. He was sitting in the last row by the window in the fourth group of desks. At this moment, there was a girl lying on the desk beside him. The girl was burying her head on the desk, seemingly fast asleep, with her face obscured. Her hair was tied into a simple and pure ponytail, and she was wearing the standard school uniform of Yunnan High School. The red and white jacket was light and translucent, and the collar was slightly open, revealing a long, smooth, and fair neck. The school pants were supposed to be loose and baggy, but the girl's long, shapely legs made them fit tightly, outlining an astonishing curve, enough to make any boy at this age blush and feel his heart race. Lin Ran, a man in his 30s, experienced many things in life, so he didn't get flustered. He wiped his mouth without changing expression. Then glanced at those long legs. And calmly swallowed. At 18, his deskmate already had a figure that seemed a little too perfect. In his previous life, he barely had the chance to observe her up close like this. Although they were deskmates, his introverted, shy personality and average grades meant he never had the courage to talk to her, especially with the ice-cold campus beauty who had been famous since the start of high school. For 3 years, he barely exchanged more than 10 words with Su Qingyan, and even stealing a glance at her was something he lacked the courage to do. Who would have thought that after more than 10 years without seeing each other, he would save her life upon their reunion? Looking at his deskmate, Lin Ran felt a sense of emotion. Although he had lost his life, it had also given him a second chance to live. He might as well take this opportunity to make up for past regrets. He hadn't intended to develop feelings for her just because of his rebirth. After all, the school's acknowledged ice-cold goddess was not easy to chase. In 3 years of high school, many boys had failed miserably in front of this ice mountain. Why would she suddenly melt and warm up to him just because he was reborn? Unless she remembered that he had saved her life. But she hadn't been reborn. Lin Ran sneered, preparing to throw these thoughts aside. Lin Ran! What are you daydreaming about? A furious shout. Their homeroom teacher, Liu Chun, glared at him. Other students in the classroom also turned to look, eyes full of schadenfreude. Lin Ran froze, unsure of how to apologize or make amends. But the campus beauty beside him seemed to have been woken up by the shout. She propped herself up on her arms, rubbed her sleepy eyes, and slowly lifted her head. And then Lin Ran finally saw the face of his high school deskmate from 16 years ago. Exquisite features, a slightly raised nose, and compared to the mature, cold, and stunning beauty she would become over the next decade, she had more of an innocent, natural purity that didn't wear any makeup. When Lin Ran looked at his deskmate, she instinctively lifted her head and looked at him. The passage of time had turned the world around. But their gazes met again. Through Lin Ran's eyes, he unexpectedly saw his campus beauty deskmate freeze. Her lips parted slightly in shock, as if witnessing something incredibly unbelievable. Then, visibly, the girl's eyes quickly reddened. Tears began to well up, quickly filling her eyes. Before Lin Ran could react. Under the astonished gaze of the homeroom teacher and the shocked, almost terrified stares of all the classmates in the room, a fragrance swept through the air. The ice-cold goddess, Su Qingyan, suddenly opened her arms and pounced toward Lin Ran, wrapping him tightly in a hug. For a moment, the entire classroom fell into dead silence. It felt as though the world was quiet. The next moment, the whole class erupted into a clamor like boiling water, drowning out Su Qingyang's emotional, choked words as she hugged Lin Ran tightly. I found you. Chapter 2, Living Again, this time I'll be the one to pursue you. Su Qingyan had a dream. In the dream, she was 34 years old, with a net worth of billions and a successful career. Although she had remained single all these years, it allowed her to focus all her energy on her work, and she found joy in doing so. But then came that stormy night. When 2 giant beams of light from an overloaded heavy truck shattered the night and pierced through the rain, she had barely realized what was happening before she found herself unable to escape, her mind filled with hopeless resignation. Out of nowhere, a figure appeared and threw himself at her, using all his strength to push her forward. In that moment, she turned around in panic. For the first and last time, she saw his face. He was a young man, about her age, with tousled black hair and a handsome face that radiated warmth. There was something vaguely familiar about him, something that made her feel an inexplicable sense of closeness. At the funeral, the authorities awarded the man a medal for bravery. His parents, who had hurried back from their hometown, were devastated by grief, almost collapsing in tears as they supported the coffin. She cancelled all her business meetings and public engagements, donned a black veil, and, filled with sorrow and guilt, took on the responsibility of handling the funeral arrangements. She diligently took care of all the details, ensuring everything went smoothly. After the funeral, she sent his parents back to their hotel. In front of them, she knelt and bowed 3 times, swearing solemnly that she would take on the responsibility of caring for them from now on. She would be the most considerate daughter and daughter-in-law. The coffin was returned to their hometown with his parents. To her shock, she discovered that he, Lin Ran, was from the same town as her Yunan. Even more surprising was the familiarity she felt when she learned his name. It was as if she had known him before. When she arrived at his house, despite his parents' protests, she insisted on helping take care of them and manage the household chores. She naturally fell into the role of a daughter and daughter-in-law. After cleaning the living room and the master bedroom, she entered Lin Ran's room. This was the first time in her life that Su Qingyan had entered a male classmate's room alone. According to his parents, after graduating from high school, Lin Ran had left home to study, so the room still held traces of his teenage years, his hobbies, his personality, his life before turning 18. As she surveyed the room, she noticed the game discs, magazine posters, and awards scattered around. Each piece seemed to capture a moment of the boy's past. Then, she stumbled upon a photograph tucked under the glass of his desk. It was their Union High School 06 Class 3 graduation photo, the gold-lettered text almost blinding her. The moment she saw it, she felt as though a heavy hammer had struck her. Dizzy, her head spun, and she almost lost her balance. In a daze, she immediately searched the photo for her own image. There she was, 18 years old, standing proud and cold, clearly the focal point of the photo, radiant with beauty. And then, she saw him. The shy, awkward boy in the back corner of the photo, his head down, quietly standing there. Memories flooded back in a rush. Lin Ran was the Lin Ran from her high school days. The sense of familiarity was not a coincidence, it was because they had been classmates. After so many years, their reunion had come with the price of his life. Staring at the photo, she suddenly burst into tears. She only had a vague impression of Lin Ran from high school, and the few times they'd spoken were fleeting. But now, she owed him a debt of gratitude she could never repay in this lifetime. Fortunately, she still had time to get to know him better. Lin Ran had a habit of writing in his journal, and a stack of his diaries, from childhood to adolescence, sat neatly on a shelf. After much hesitation and with his parents' consent, she began reading his journals. The journals were full of trivial details about his daily life, as well as the thoughts and emotions he had during his student years. As she read, she was amused by some of the funny events and empathized with the sadness he had written about. Little by little, she came to realize how upright, brave, and kind Lin Ran was, qualities she had never noticed before. She became completely immersed in his journals, feeling every emotion he had felt: joy, sadness, anger, and love, as if she were experiencing it herself. It was as if she had formed an unprecedented bond with Lin Ran, a connection that transcended time, as though they were true soulmates. When she reached the pages from high school, she was startled to find that Lin Ran had mentioned her. It turned out that the shy, introverted boy had secretly liked her back then, but lacked the confidence and courage to act on it. Coward. If I could live again, I would take the initiative to pursue you. That night, lying in Lin Ran's bed, she found herself lost in thought before sleep. A smile tugged at the corners of her lips as she imagined how things could be if she had the chance to start over. But when she fell asleep, she seemed to enter a world of darkness. In the boundless darkness, she saw a figure, Lin Ran's silhouette, drifting toward her. Suddenly, a violent pain, a heavy wave of sorrow and guilt, rushed over her like a tidal wave. She instinctively reached out, desperate to touch him. It felt as if she was almost there, but just out of reach. Her chest was filled with frustration, regret, and a deep sense of loss. She refused to give up. Stretching her hand further, inch by inch, she finally managed to touch him. With all the strength she had left, she clutched his hand tightly, their fingers interlocking. Suddenly, the darkness collapsed. Light began to seep into the surroundings. In her ears, she heard a familiar voice, the voice of their high school class teacher, shouting angrily, from over a decade ago. In the back row of the fourth group, Su Qingyan propped herself up with her arms, rubbing her drowsy eyes as she slowly sat up. Then, she was stunned to find herself in a classroom with clear windows. The air was humid and hot. Everything around her seemed both distant and familiar. Looking up, she met the gaze of the boy sitting next to her. He was handsome, with soft, tousled black hair that seemed just right for messing up. Without a second thought, Su Qingyan instantly recognized him. In that moment, her eyes welled up with tears. A complex mix of excitement, joy, heartache, and relief surged through her, and without thinking, she threw herself into his arms, holding him tightly. Amid the eruption of astonished voices in the classroom, Su Qingyan, choked with emotion, cried out, "I found you!" As the entire classroom erupted in shock, Lin Ran was completely stunned. A giant question mark seemed to float above his head. What the hell? What's going on? Chapter 3, Lin Ran, I feel like I've been targeted by a fox spirit. The amount of information was overwhelming, and Lin Ran's brain was almost short-circuiting. Just a moment ago, he had celebrated his 34th birthday, heroically saving someone on the street, only to be hit by a truck and sent flying. Then, the next second, he was reborn back to their high school classroom 16 years ago. Before he could even process such a shocking turn of events, in the next moment, his beautiful high school classmate, sitting next to him, burst into tears and threw herself into his arms. He had no idea what she was muttering. What kind of plotline is this? At this moment, Lin Ran's head was buzzing. A single suspicious thought flashed through his mind. Is this a honey trap? Lin Ran was still trying to understand the situation when the middle-aged, nearly 50-year-old class teacher, Liu Chun, almost exploded with anger from the podium. Lin Ran. Sleeping in class is one thing. But now you're even harassing your classmate. Beautiful female students naturally received favorable treatment from male teachers. And Su Qingyan, the top student of the school and the undisputed beauty of Yunnan High, was Liu Chun's proud favorite. The other students were fuming too, staring at Lin Ran with furious, sharp glares. What the hell? He thought Lin Ran looked like an honest guy, but here he was, daring to hug our Su Qingyan, the goddess of our school. Has he eaten a bear's heart and a leopard's gall? If you're so brave, why don't you let me do it? Huh? Lin Ran froze for a moment, then suddenly realized what was going on. He hurriedly pushed the girl, who had thrown herself into his arms, away. Teacher, it's a misunderstanding. Liu Chun was even more enraged. Misunderstanding? Then explain why you hugged Su Qingyan. What kind of upside-down world is this? Lin Ran was losing it. Teacher, open your titanium alloy eyes and look clearly, I'm the victim here. It was this woman who hugged me. Look at the smug smile on her face now that she has gotten her way. You can see her eyes are all red from crying, like a flower in the rain. Huh? The more I talk, the stranger it sounds. Only then did he notice that Su Qingyan, who had been crying, now looked pitiful and was teary-eyed. Liu Chun was so angry that his voice was shaking. You made Su Qingyan cry. Lin Ran suddenly felt like crying too. I really didn't. The classroom was in complete chaos, with angry shouts rising. The teacher was looking at Lin Ran as if he were a criminal deserving of death. His arm lifted like a guillotine, ready to declare Lin Ran's execution on the spot, to calm the anger of the class. In the midst of the commotion, Su Qingyan, who had initially been overwhelmed with emotion when she first woke up, gradually regained her composure. Then, as memories flooded back, she finally understood what was going on. She had been reborn. She had returned to the summer of her 18th year, back in the high school classroom. The life-saving benefactor who had sacrificed himself to save her 16 years later was now sitting next to her again, as he had been in the summer of 2007, her desk mate. But it seemed that she had just caused a huge mess for him. Enough, Lin Ran, get out of here and stand in the hallway for half an hour. Liu Chun could no longer hold back his anger and roared, about to pass his final judgment. Wait. At this moment, Su Qingyan, who had now cleared her mind, stood up and adjusted her emotions. From the back row, the girl stood tall like a jade statue. Apart from her slightly red eyes, her face had returned to the calm, icy demeanor that made her the school's goddess. She looked at the teacher at the podium, her tone neutral. Teacher, you've misunderstood. What happened just now had nothing to do with Lin Ran. It was I who hugged him first. The classroom immediately fell silent. Then, an even greater uproar followed. The students' eyes almost popped out. What? Su Qingyan hugged Lin Ran. How is that possible? Liu Chun couldn't believe it. You hugged him first. Qingyan, you don't need to cover for Lin Ran. Just tell the truth, and I'll make sure justice is done. Su Qingyan's expression remained calm. I wasn't covering for him. I just had a nightmare and was scared. It's not Lin Ran's fault. A nightmare? So that's it. The class suddenly realized what had happened. They had thought Lin Ran was the one who had made a move, but it turned out Su Qingyan had just woken up from a nightmare and was startled. She had randomly hugged him in her panic. Immediately, the students' attitudes toward Lin Ran shifted from anger to jealousy and envy. Damn, this guy is so lucky. Why wasn't he Su Qingyan's desk mate? If I were, I would have been the one getting hugged by the ice-cold goddess. I see. Liu Chun's expression softened a little. All right, you can sit down now. And Lin Ran, this time I'll let you off the hook. Just focus on the class and don't make trouble with Qingyan again. At first, he was speaking kindly, but the last sentence directed at Lin Ran turned cold and harsh, almost like he was addressing an enemy. Lin Ran, okay. The disparity in how people are treated is unbelievable. With the turmoil over, the classroom quieted down again. Liu Chun's dry, monotonous voice resumed, trying to put the class to sleep. In the back row, Lin Ran let out a sigh of relief. Thank goodness, I dodged a bullet. Little did he know, at the same time, his beautiful classmate was subtly leaning toward him, resting her chin on her hand, watching him intently. In his previous life, he had only caught a fleeting glimpse of her before the accident. Now, reborn, this was the first time he had been so close to studying his future benefactor and past deskmate. Compared to many years later, the young man before her had not changed much. He was still handsome, though now there was a bit of youthful naivety and immaturity. His messy black hair had grown a little longer, and his bangs were a little too long. But in the years to come, this boy would grow up to be the kind of little puppy that would make countless older women swoon, teased by everyone. Even in 2007, if this boy weren't so shy and introverted, always keeping his head down and avoiding contact, he would have been the object of secret admiration for many of the school's girls. Su Qingyan felt some regret for not having noticed her deskmate in her past life. But it didn't matter. Since she had been reborn, she had plenty of time to get to know him, to interact and understand him better. With this thought, Su Qingyan smiled slightly. Lin Ran suddenly felt a chill on his back, as if a mysterious fox spirit had locked its gaze on him. Turning his head, he saw his beautiful classmate, still resting her chin in her hand, gazing at him intently. Lin Ran's mind went blank. What are you staring at? He asked before he even realized it. His voice wasn't very loud, but Liu Chun, who was listening attentively, immediately shot him a sharp, electric gaze. Lin Ran, what are you doing now? The classmates, who had been watching closely and were jealous of the attention Su Qingyan had given Lin Ran, immediately raised their hands, eager to report him. Teacher, I know. Lin Ran was staring at Su Qingyan with lecherous eyes. What? Lin Ran almost cracked. What kind of second turning upside down world is this? Chapter 4, The School Beauty's Inner Joy, He Called Me Sister. Lin Ran almost exhausted all his energy, as if he was swearing on his life. He barely convinced the skeptical old class teacher, Liu Chun, that he had no intention of harassing his beloved student. Liu Chun reluctantly spared him, giving him a second chance at life. Lin Ran let out a sigh of relief, but was also so angry that his teeth itched. He cast a sidelong glance at the true culprit sitting beside him. However, his school beauty desk mate seemed unaffected, turning back around with a calm, icy expression, focused on the lesson as if nothing had happened. This made Lin Ran unsure of himself. Was what had just happened a hallucination? It was indeed possible. After all, his deskmate was the recognized ice queen of the school. This cold, distant, and proud attitude was the version of her he knew best. Staring at him while propped up on her hand. Lin Ran didn't think he was that charming. It must have been a hallucination. After all, the shock of his rebirth was still too overwhelming, and his mind hadn't fully adjusted. Mumbling to himself, Lin Ran reluctantly refocused on the teacher's monotonous lecture, trying his best to avoid being caught and losing his life. What he didn't know was that as soon as his gaze shifted away, his deskmate, the school beauty, had a barely noticeable smile at the corner of her lips, even though her expression seemed serious and focused. She was faking the attentiveness. Teasing her little benefactor, this was so amusing. However, as smart as Su Qingyan was, she realized that even though she had been reborn, she still needed to maintain her image and hide her emotions. She had to keep up the persona of the cold, distant, and unapproachable ice queen that everyone saw her as. If she suddenly became overly affectionate toward Lin Ran, not only would it raise suspicion among their classmates, but it might also frighten him, her sweet little benefactor, which would not be good at all. After all, they were deskmates, and there would be plenty of time for them to interact further. No need to rush. One step at a time, slow and steady. With that thought, Su Qingyan smiled again, instinctively sticking out her tongue and lightly licking her lips. In that instant, the small, almost imperceptible display of charm could have easily been mistaken for the allure of a centuries-old fox spirit. One of the boys from the third row, who had been sneaking glances at Su Qingyan, happened to catch this moment and nearly fell off his seat in awe. The movement caught the attention of the other students, and soon, the whole class was looking over, including a stern reprimand from teacher Liu Chun. As for Su Qingyan, she had already returned to her usual cold and distant demeanor, as if nothing had happened. However, this icy facade didn't last long. Su Qingyan couldn't help but sneak another glance at Lin Ran. It was like she was starstruck. Before her rebirth, she had read every page of his diary, including the various certificates and photos in his bedroom. Her knowledge of him was nearly as thorough as that of his parents. Now, the boy who would save her in the future, still slightly immature, sat right beside her. He was within arm's reach, and she could observe him up close. It was incredibly satisfying. And, the more she looked, the more she liked him. On the surface, Su Qingyan remained calm and composed, but inside, her heart was racing. A mini person inside her was cheering, almost bursting with excitement. Wow! So cute. So lovable. His hair looks so fluffy and soft, I want to mess it up. His face is so fair and smooth, I just want to pinch it. The shy, introverted little puppy, I want to tease him. As a 30-something-year-old Ice Queen CEO in her past life, she had always been seen as a strong, cold, and intimidating woman. Countless people admired her from afar, but she remained single for all those years. Who would have thought that now, she would be acting like a love-struck schoolgirl? Even Su Qingyan herself didn't expect this. But, at this moment, she was thoroughly enjoying it. While teacher Liu Chun wasn't paying attention, she continued to sneak glances at her desk mate. Lin Ran couldn't take it anymore. Ever since class had started, he felt a chill, as though some fox spirit was eyeing him. Even without turning his head, he could clearly feel a pair of eyes, full of intent, staring at him. But whenever he turned around to look, Su Qingyan would always beat him to it, quickly turning back around and resuming her cold, composed, and upright posture. The moment he looked away, he would once again feel her gaze sneaking back to him. It was a cycle. Over and over. Lin Ran couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He grabbed a piece of paper, quickly scribbled something, and pushed it over to her. "Sister, what are you trying to do?" Su Qingyan briefly glanced at the note, her expression still cold and detached. After a moment, she pushed it back. On the back of the note was written, "Don't pass notes during class." The strokes were firm and strong, and even through the paper, Lin Ran could feel the icy aura emanating from them. Lin Ran. I'm defeated. Impressive. What he didn't know was that while Su Qingyan appeared cold on the outside, inside, she was practically jumping for joy. Oh my god, my heart is melting. He called me sister. The entire class felt like an eternity. Finally, the bell rang for the end of class, and Lin Ran practically sprang out of his seat, rushing out of the classroom and into the hallway, breathing a sigh of relief as he finally got some fresh air and calmed his nerves. It was too strange. He had been ogled by his school beauty desk mate for who knows how long. If he didn't know her cold, aloof personality, he would have thought she was deliberately teasing him. At that moment, a male classmate approached, grinning and giving him a thumbs up. "Ran, you're awesome. You've won the favor of the school beauty, good job." This guy was Zhao Ku, one of Lin Ran's closest friends in high school, outgoing and a gossip lover. Lin Ran sighed. "I really didn't mean it. It was her who made the first move." Zhao Ku nodded knowingly. "I get it. After all, she's the school beauty, and there are tons of guys chasing her. It's normal for you to feel insecure and think you're not good enough." Then, he turned serious and advised him. "But hey, your desk mate's with her. That's an advantage most people don't have. If you really manage to win her over, that's huge. And if not, no big deal. It's still better than being a simp for Shen Lingshan, right?" Shen Lingshan. Lin Ran froze for a second before recalling. He had indeed had a black history with her in high school. Just as he thought of that, a familiar, delicate female voice suddenly called out behind him. Lin Ran tilde. Chapter 5, You Still Want to Steal My Lunch Money. Lin Ran turned his head and saw a beautiful girl in the school's summer uniform and knee-length skirt happily walking toward him, with another girl by her side. The first girl was charming and sweet-looking, with neatly styled shoulder-length hair and a small pink bow on her head. Although her looks didn't quite match the stunning beauty of Lin Ran's classmate, the school goddess Su Qingyan, she was at least at the level of a class beauty. And such a sweet and cute type was extremely popular among high school boys in this age group. No wonder in my previous life, she treated my buddies like dogs, making them dance around her. Lin Ran couldn't help but sigh as he watched the sweet girl walk toward him. This was Zhao Ku's Shen Lingshan, the creator of his romantic history during high school. In his previous life, although he sat next to a beautiful school goddess like Su Qingyan, he never developed feelings for her. One reason was Lin Ran's introverted personality. He didn't have the courage to approach Su Qingyan. The other reason was that he was already in love with someone else, Shen Lingshan from class 7. It all started when Shen Lingshan thought Lin Ran was a bit handsome and liked him. She made the first move, using all kinds of flirtatious and cute tactics to win him over. Lin Ran, who had little experience with girls at the time, was completely mesmerized and fell head over heels for her. But Shen Lingshan, though sweet and cute on the surface, was a master at manipulating men. After successfully attracting Lin Ran, she quickly turned him into her loyal dog, ready to do anything for her with just a snap of her fingers. Poor Lin Ran, who at the time believed he was making sacrifices for love. He spent nearly all of his weekly food allowance 150 yuan on Shen Lingshan, eating nothing but bread and instant noodles with no complaints. But despite all his sacrifices, the furthest their relationship went was holding hands twice. Whenever Lin Ran wanted to confess or define their relationship, Shen Lingshan would always dodge the topic, keeping him hanging on. Isn't our relationship good enough as it is? Why do we need to label it as boyfriend and girlfriend? But don't be discouraged, I really like the way you love me. Here's the deal, my birthday is coming up. If you give me 10 gifts and I'm satisfied, maybe I'll seriously consider it. So, Lin Ran, with all his heart, spent 2 weeks folding a basket of paper cranes, bought a large bottle of baby's breath, and even saved up 300 yuan to buy a genuine Mickey Mouse plush toy. 10 gifts in total. Full of excitement, he went to deliver the gifts to Shen Lingshan on her birthday, braving the pouring rain. However, at her apartment, he caught her passionately kissing a rich second-generation student from school. The guy was already groping her, and she was happily receiving a set of Swarovski jewelry worth thousands of yuan. Lin Ran's heart shattered on the spot, and he fell to the ground, realizing how foolish he had been. But now that he had been reborn, Lin Ran was determined not to be anyone's doormat again. Meanwhile, Shen Lingshan, who was still unaware that her prey had slipped away, came over with her friend Kui Qianqian, all smiles, and said, "Lin Ran, Qianqian and I want ice cream. Can you go to the shop and buy it for us?" Her tone was demanding, as if it was a given. Kui Qianqian, standing beside her, impatiently urged, "Hurry up. There are only 7 minutes left in the break. If you don't go now, you won't make it." Before Lin Ran could say anything, Zhao Ku, standing nearby, angrily interjected, "You know there are only 7 minutes left. The shop is so far away there is no way you'll make it in time." The break at Yunnan High School was only 10 minutes, and it took at least 8 or 9 minutes to run to the shop and back, leaving people exhausted. Most students would wait for the longer 20-minute lunch break to buy snacks. But now, Shen Lingshan and Kui Qianqian were just being lazy. They didn't want to wait for the lunch break and didn't want to exert any effort, so they turned to their loyal tool Lin Ran. Not only did they get out of walking, but they didn't have to pay either. Hearing Zhao Ku's protest, Shen Lingshan pouted cutely. "You're not capable." "But that doesn't mean Lin Ran isn't he?" "Right, Lin Ran." The casual use of our Lin Ran was a subtle hint that made boys fall for her even more. This is textbook manipulation. In his previous life, Lin Ran would have been over the moon, excitedly rushing to do their bidding. But now, he saw through Shen Lingshan's tricks. Even though she looked cute, it only made him more disgusted and disdainful. However, since he was now a mature man in his 30s, mentally speaking, he wasn't going to argue with a little girl. After thinking it over, Lin Ran decided to politely refuse. "Are you sick?" Shen Lingshan and Kui Qianqian froze, wondering if they had heard him correctly. Lin Ran added, "If you're not sick, then why don't you buy it yourself?" Shen Lingshan quickly put on a pitiful face. "But I can't run." Kui Qianqian was already angry. "Exactly. Lingshan is a girl, and the shop is so far away. She's got delicate arms and legs, how can you be so heartless?" Lin Ran absent-mindedly glanced at Shen Lingshan's legs. Under her knee-length skirt, her legs were fair and slender, wearing red canvas shoes and white ankle socks. Lin Ran nodded. "Nice legs." Shen Lingshan, seeing him notice, smugly smiled. She thought Lin Ran had finally fallen for her and, pretending to be shy, crossed her legs and leaned back, showing off even more. "Then, does that mean you'll do it?" However, Lin Ran responded nonchalantly. "Such nice legs, you must be really fast when running. Believe in yourself, you can do it." Shen Lingshan was left dumbfounded. What kind of twist was that? Was he complimenting her legs or giving her a professional track and field critique? Su Qingyan was getting impatient. Lin Ran, stop talking nonsense. Are you going or not? There are only 5 minutes left. Shen Lingshan gritted her teeth, as if making a final decision, then spoke. Fine, you go buy the ice cream for us, and I'll promise you. I'll have lunch with you today. After she said that, a victorious look appeared on her face. In the past, whenever she made such a deal, Lin Ran would always be overjoyed and agree to anything. She was sure it would be no different this time. But instead, Lin Ran looked at her with disbelief, as if she were a scammer. You still want to steal my lunch money? Chapter 6. The school beauty got angry. You think you can touch my man? Shen Lingshan was stunned. The sudden turn of events made her head buzz. It was clearly her who was doing Lin Ran a favor by accompanying him for dinner. Why did he seem to be unwilling? This was completely different from the reaction she expected. At this time, other students who were resting in the corridor also looked over curiously. Before, Shen Lingshan often came to their class 10 upstairs to find Lin Ran, and always asked him to run errands, so they were used to it. It was just that today, it seemed that something went wrong, and Lin Ran didn't seem to agree to be his tool. The situation was a bit stagnant. And in front of so many other students in the corridor casting probing glances, Shen Lingshan was a little embarrassed. After all, she was the class beauty of class 7, and there were many boys in the grade who pursued and liked her. As long as she opened her mouth, there would always be people rushing to do this and that for her. In her opinion, it should be Lin Ran's honor to give him the chance to run errands. As a result, the tool she thought was in control now seems to have turned against her and suddenly disobeyed. Shen Lingshan couldn't help getting angry and stamped her feet. Are you going or not? If you don't go, I will. Halfway through her words, she wanted to threaten, but Shen Lingshan found that she couldn't continue. Because she suddenly realized that she didn't seem to have any bargaining chips to threaten the other party. Since the two met, it was almost all Lin Ran's unconditional dedication to her as for her to Lin Ran, except for occasionally acting coquettishly to him and being a little intimate in words. There was no substantial equal return at all. You can't threaten. I will never act coquettishly to you again, and I won't make small verbal hints to you. Seeing Shen Lingshan was speechless, Zhao Ku beside her was happy. But what? Can't think of it. When I was with you, Lin Ran had always done all the dirty work, and I didn't get any benefits. You, Shen Lingshan, have been enjoying the fruits of others' labor all day long. What qualifications do you have to threaten him? Shen Lingshan was embarrassed and angry when she was told the truth. In a hurry, a flash of inspiration suddenly flashed in her mind, and she blurted out. I got it. If you don't go, my previous promise to consider holding hands with you will be invalid. You will never have a chance. She finished these words quickly. Shen Lingshan was relieved immediately. Looking at Lin Ran, her heart was re-energized and proud. From the time they met until now, she and Lin Ran have not had any physical intimacy. Before, Lin Ran had mustered up the courage and carefully mentioned whether he could hold hands once, but she also found a reason to refuse, saying that she would think about it. At that time, she planned to use this hand-holding thing to keep hooking Lin Ran, give him some hope to strive, and then squeeze more benefits and bargains from him, and finally give him a little sweetness when she was in a good mood one day. It turned out to be very effective. Even if he only got such a perfunctory promise from her, Lin Ran felt like he had found a treasure. In the next 1 or 2 months, he almost wanted to worship her and take care of her carefully, for fear that he would be angry and give up the consideration. Now, with this killer, naturally there is no fear that Lin Ran will not obey. Lin Ran was indeed stunned when he heard it. I remembered it. After being hooked by Shen Lingshan for 2 or 3 years, he only held hands twice in total, and that was when graduation was approaching. And according to Shen Lingshan's statement at this moment, he and the other party's first hand holding has not happened yet. That is to say, is my body still clean? The surprise came suddenly. Lin Ran looked at Shen Lingshan in front of him, and said with sincere gratitude. Thank you. The favor of not holding hands. I will never forget it. My body finally got reborn. How could such an important thing as holding hands with a girl for the first time be ruined by the dirty hands of a female sea king? Fortunately, the terrible thing has not happened yet. Huh. Shen Lingshan was stunned and did not understand the meaning of this thank you. But soon she thought that Lin Ran had given up and became more proud. Are you scared? If you are scared, go quickly. I want to eat Minlong's ice cream. If you go too late, you will never hold hands with me in this life. Lin Ran was delighted. Don't worry, I will not go. The air was suddenly silent for a moment. Shen Lingshan was stunned. When she came back to her senses, she was anxious and angry. Did you understand? If you don't go, I won't hold your hand. Lin Ran nodded fiercely. It's a deal, don't regret it, we won't hold hands forever, right? Finally, she didn't forget to confirm it again. Kui Qianqian next to her was also angry at this time. Lin Ran, do you understand what people say? Shen Lingshan said that if you don't go to buy ice cream, you won't be able to hold her hand in this life. Their voice was a little loud. It attracted the attention of almost all the students in the corridor. Seeing Lin Ran and Shen Lingshan and Kui Qianqian who looked angry, the classmates understood and looked at Lin Ran with a little more sympathy. Lin Ran. It is estimated that he has done something to displease his goddess Shen again, and he was scolded in public. At this time. But suddenly a cold and pleasant voice sounded. Of course he can understand. But you too can't understand what people say. It was like a god descending from the sky. It was like the empress coming to the court. When the iceberg school beauty goddess recognized by the whole school of Yunnan Middle School walked out of the back door of the 10th class classroom with a cold face and a pair of long legs, every step was as hard as stepping on the hearts of all the onlookers. The ponytail fluttered behind her. Cold and stunning. The aura was overwhelming. Walked straight to the two girls, Shen Lingshan and Kui Qianqian, and whether intentionally or unintentionally, protected someone tightly behind her like a chick. Su Qingyan looked at Shen Lingshan. Her slender and tall figure of nearly 1.7 meters allowed her to look down on the other person coldly from a high position. Lin Ran said, he is not interested in you. You are still pestering here, don't you feel ashamed? A stone stirred up 1,000 waves. The whole corridor was almost shaken. All the students watching suddenly widened their eyes, looking at the suddenly appeared Su Da campus beauty in disbelief. Fuck. Is the campus beauty of Su Da? She is actively protecting Lin Ran? Standing up for Lin Ran. Amidst the shock and uproar, Su Qingyan's expression remained unchanged, and she continued to look coldly at the sweet and lovely girl in front of her who was half a head shorter than her. Class 7, Grade 3. She had read all of Lin Ran's diaries in her previous life, so she could easily confirm the other party's identity. She also naturally knew how much emotional damage this seemingly sweet and lovely girl had caused to Lin Ran. Just recalling the sad words in the diary. It was enough to make her heart rise with a fire of evil for no reason. It was not just a simple outbreak of justice. It was mainly a kind of annoyance, as if her own cabbage was bitten by a wild boar. At this moment, on the surface, Su Qingyan's expression was still as cold as usual, and no more emotional changes could be seen. But the mini-man in my heart has already been armed and armored, murderous and furious. The man I like. You can't touch him. Chapter 7. If you want to hold hands with a girl, hold mine, it's free. I couldn't help but defend my bestie and loudly argued. Lin Ran was willing, and our Lingshan didn't force him. Su Qingyan no longer paid attention to Shen Lingshan and Kui Qianqian, turned her head to look at Lin Ran, and spoke in a calm tone as if teaching. Open your eyes in the future, make friends, don't make friends with these shady people who like to take advantage. Speaking of this, she paused, as if she thought of something, and added lightly. And I really want to hold hands with a girl. Hold mine. No need to run errands, it's free. In one sentence. Shocking. When Shen Lingshan, Kui Qianqian, Zhao Ku and all the students in the corridor were all stunned by Su Qingyan's shocking words, their heads were buzzing. Then the next second. The next scene that came into view completely shocked everyone. It was early summer in 2007, and the sky was bright. The grass and trees in front of the Yushu teaching building of Yunnan Middle School were lush, and the sunlight shone through the tall and lush branches and leaves, casting scattered golden spots on the corridor floor behind the classroom of Class 30. Countless tiny dust particles in the air emitted a faint light, spinning and dancing like elves. Under the eyes of the public, the cool and moving school beauty girl stretched out her white arm and put her hand into the palm of the boy sitting at the same table in front of her very naturally. It was like a princess actively inviting a loyal knight. Then, hold it with your backhand. Take the initiative to lead. Unreservedly and unscrupulously, this scene hit everyone's eyes hard. for Lin Ran at this moment. He was also confused and hadn't figured out the situation in front of him. The next second, he felt a cold and soft touch on his palm. Before he could react, his right hand was grasped and pulled up by that fair hand. Then he heard the school beauty deskmate's calm tone of command. "It's time for class, go back to your seat." Then a pulling force came from his right hand. In front of the dull eyes of the classmates who were almost petrified into sculptures in the entire corridor. Someone was led back to the classroom by his school beauty deskmate in such a daze. Just at this time, the class bell rang suddenly and urgently. Ding-ling-ling. The bell broke the silence in the corridor with its rude and unreasonable crushing. Countless students woke up from their dreams, and before they could digest the shock of the scene, they hurriedly scattered and ran back to the classroom. Only Zhao was left there, still savoring the experience. Look at Shen Lingshan and Su Qingyan, who were also dumbfounded. Then look at the backs of Lin Ran and Su Qingyan as they left. Student Zhao exclaimed from the bottom of his heart. Fuck. Awesome. Chapter 8 Su Qingyan, little thing, can't your sister control you? In high school, boys and girls would be teased if they got close to each other and said a few more words. Calling each other by name without surname also seemed too intimate and ambiguous. Fighting after class and inadvertent physical contact would make people blush and their hearts beat fast. Not to mention, in public, holding hands openly. The scene in the corridor behind the 10th class classroom fell into the eyes of many classmates, and they didn't know how violent and shocking it would be in their hearts. It was also destined that this amazing feat from the iceberg school beauty would spread quickly in a very short time, and in the near future, it would cause a stir in all kinds of circles in the whole Yunnan Middle School. And at this moment, when the bell rang, the two parties had already sat back in their seats in the last row of the fourth group in the classroom. The atmosphere was strangely quiet. Lin Ran glanced at his classmate next to him and tried to organize his words. That. After organizing for a long time, he couldn't form a complete sentence. The plot was too outrageous, and he was really confused. He was still confused until now. What on earth was going on? There was no such plot in his previous life. As if he noticed Lin Ran's confusion, Su Qingyan looked calm as usual and said in a light tone. Don't get me wrong, I just can't stand those two girls taking advantage of others casually. Holding hands is nothing, don't take it to heart. Par. While saying this, the miniature person in the heart of the Su University School Beauty was already smiling and happily firing salutes to celebrate. Woo! Holding the little classmate's hand. Little Lin Ran's first hand in this life. Achievement wins oh yeah. Looking through Lin Ran's diary in the previous life, Su Qingyan clearly remembered that the first time someone held hands with the opposite sex was with Shen Lingshan, which happened in the last 2 weeks before graduation. But in this life, she, Su Qingyan, successfully intercepted it. What Shen Lingshan, the dirty hands of the green tea scum girl, go away. I don't know the active inner drama of the school beauty classmate in front of me. After hearing Su Qingyan's explanation, Lin Ran also showed a look of understanding. This is much more reasonable, and it also fits the iceberg personality of his school beauty classmate. But then Lin Ran hesitated again. That. Su Qingyan seemed to have predicted and guessed someone's thoughts in advance, and continued to maintain a cold look and said. Holding hands casually, I just said it casually. You don't have to take it seriously. At the same time, the mini-man in his heart must take it seriously. Sister's hand, little Lin Ran, you can hold it as you like. Hold it as many times as you want. Sister owes you a life, don't be polite. Su Qingyan looked at Lin Ran with a calm expression. Any more questions? Someone nodded honestly. Yes. Then he looked at his right hand with a worried look, which had not been released by the school beauty deskmate since he entered the classroom. This hand, can we stop holding it now? Oh, sorry, I forgot. Su University's school beauty looked cold as usual, and naturally released her hand as if nothing had happened. In fact, the mini-man in his heart was full of regret and regret. Oh, I was discovered, I still want to hold it for a while. The little deskmate's hand is warm, I still want to hold it. Lin Ran breathed a sigh of relief when his right hand was freed. It's not that he wants to be Liu Xiaohui. It's mainly because he is afraid of death. Just now, the old class teacher Liu Chun was patrolling outside the corridor. He was worried that he would be seen and killed by the other party. Class is about to start. The last class this morning was history. The history teacher was a thin old man who was weak in his lectures. He was muttering on the podium with the handouts, immersed in his own world, not caring at all. Most of the students were sleeping or doing something secretly. Some lowered their heads to hide their phones in their desks. The last row of seats. Lin Ran thought about it and felt that no matter what the reason was, the school beauty deskmate had helped him. He had to express his gratitude out of politeness. So he wrote another note and handed it over. Thank you. The school beauty deskmate glanced at the note and continued to look at the history teacher on the podium with a cold and focused face. At the same time, he wrote a few strokes on the note with a pen and pushed the note back. How to thank you? Lin Ran, ? He was just being polite, but why was this school beauty deskmate really so impolite? How to thank? I gave you my life in my last life, why don't you think about how to thank me? In his heart, there was also a mini-Q version of a little man who was angry and slammed the table. But thinking about it again, Lin Ran calmed down again. Forget it, it's all about the last life. Besides, she hasn't been reborn. He wrote a few more strokes on the note and pushed it back. How do you want to thank me? This time, the school beauty's deskmate seemed to have a slight smile on her lips when she saw the content of the note. She quickly wrote another line of words on the note and pushed it back. The handwriting was beautiful and generous. But the content of the text made someone almost choke to death by his own saliva the moment he saw it. Call me sister. Lin Ran, ? When I typed the question mark, it wasn't because I had a problem, but because I thought you had a problem. I couldn't help but look up at my school beauty deskmate, who was still looking at the history teacher on the podium with a focused expression, looking like she was listening attentively. It's hard to believe that such a cold face could say such outrageous words on the note. Iceberg school beauty deskmate. There is such a special hobby? Lin Ran was confused and could only attribute it to the fact that he knew too little about her in his previous life. But sister must not be called. Otherwise, where would the face of a mature man in his 30s be put? Continue to write the note and hand it back. No, change it. The school beauty deskmate glanced at the note again, and quickly wrote and pushed it back. Then treat me to lunch at noon. Lin Ran looked at the note. Why do I feel like I've been calculated? At the same time, Su Qingyan, who was sitting next to him, raised her lips again. Little thing. Sister can't control you. Chapter 9. No, these two are really dating. The old man in history was immersed in his own Tang and Song dynasty style, talking about the 3 province and 6 department system and the 2 government and 3 department system. He talked endlessly and dragged the class without noticing. It was hard to wait until the end of the get out of class. The satisfied old man just walked out of the classroom with the handouts. He quickly tidied up the desk, called his friends and prepared to go for lunch. In the back row, Lin Ran also stood up and just walked to the back door of the classroom. He was stopped by someone. Brother Ran. Jiaoku made a hurdle move that he thought was handsome, turned over a row of desks, and then quickly came to Lin Ran with a face full of courtesy. Let's go, let's eat together. You are lucky today. You are hugged by the school beauty and held hands with her. You must celebrate. I'll treat you. The scene in the corridor was so shocking that Jiaoku spent a whole history class to digest and accept it. After the initial shock and disbelief, he also found a reasonable explanation for this matter. After all, Su Xiaohua and Lin Ran are deskmates. Although Su Xiaohua is aloof, she is also a righteous and kind person. It is normal for her to help her deskmate when she sees him being bullied. As for holding hands, it must be just a deliberate attack on Shen Lingshan. There is no way there is really anything going on between the two of them. After thinking it through, Jiaoku's jealousy disappeared for the most part. Now he hugged Lin Ran's shoulders affectionately, and even had the mood to joke. But to be honest, this is the first time that Su Xiaohua is so intimate with someone. If she has a meal with you, Brother Ran, I will really believe that you two are dating, har har har. Suddenly, accompanied by a burst of fragrance, a slender and beautiful figure walked over. Su Qingyan's beautiful eyes swept over Jiaoku lightly, and then looked at Lin Ran. Let's go for dinner. 3 words. The tone was ordinary and concise. But the content was as powerful as the explosion of 500 kilograms of TNT explosives. Jiaoku was dumbfounded. The hearty laughter of the previous second suddenly stopped, like a duck whose throat was strangled by fate. Lin Ran glanced at Zhao Ku and pointed at his best friend. Zhao Ku said he would treat us. There is only 100 yuan for food a week, so the more you save, the better. Su Qingyan frowned and looked at Zhao Ku. You treat us? The expression on her face did not change, but the air around her quietly cooled down by several degrees. Zhao Ku came back to his senses and nodded again and again without knowing whether to live or die. Okay, okay. I'll treat you, I'll treat you. He was excited and ecstatic. He could treat the school's recognized iceberg beauty to dinner. Such an intimate opportunity would cost any amount of money. But halfway through his words, Zhao Ku shuddered again when he met Su Qingyan's cold and emotionless gaze, and his voice weakened. Should I treat you or not? Su Qingyan looked at Zhao Ku. You won't treat me. Zhao Ku immediately nodded like a chick pecking at rice. Yes, then I won't treat you. Brother Ran, you too can eat. Something happened suddenly at home, and my mother is giving birth to a second child. After saying that, he turned around and ran away. Lin Ran was stunned. Fuck. What a top chameleon. The light bulb was successfully eliminated. Su Qingyan withdrew her gaze with satisfaction, and when she looked at Lin Ran again, she returned to a calm look. Let's eat. After all, she couldn't escape. Lin Ran sighed, resigned to his fate, and turned around. Let's go. Not far away, Zhao Ku, who had escaped to the corner of the corridor, sneaked his head out from behind the wall and looked forward cautiously. Watching Lin Ran and Su Qingyan leave one after the other, he couldn't help swallowing his saliva, and murmured in a trembling voice. No. Did you really talk? Yunnan Middle School has 3 teaching buildings, namely Yushu, Minsi and Qinda. The senior year is in Yushu building. There are a total of 15 classes, with 3 classrooms on each floor. Lin Ran's Class 10 classroom is on the 4th floor. Walk down the stairs from the 4th floor and go out the small door next to the corridor on the 1st floor, and you will see a tree-lined path. On the right side of the road is a small flowerbed park, where students usually take a walk and rest or memorize words and recite texts. On the right side is a plastic track playground with wire fences. At the end of the tree-lined path is the school cafeteria and canteen. At noon, the students who had finished class were rushing to the cafeteria, scrambling one after another, and the crowd was surging. These bad boys, they are so slow to enter the classroom on time when going to school, but they are more active than anyone else when eating. A passing teacher couldn't help shaking his head and scolding. Standing in front of the path, looking at the huge crowd in front of him, Lin Ran estimated. Because the last class was delayed, it is estimated that there will be no seats to be found in the cafeteria now. And he turned his head and his eyes fell on the school beauty deskmate next to him. The temperature at noon was gradually getting hotter. When the school beauty deskmate came out, she also took off her long-sleeved school uniform jacket, tied a simple knot, and casually wrapped it around her waist like a skirt, with a ponytail tied behind her, adding a bit of cool and capable atmosphere. The legs under the trousers were still slender and straight, and the slender waist curve revealed by the jacket tied tightly like a skirt was even more thrilling. The upper body was a summer short-sleeved school uniform, and the 2 white arms exposed under the sleeves were so tender that it was dizzying. Standing tall and graceful. Just standing there, she seemed to be the most beautiful and moving youth scenery on campus. Take the school beauty and deskmate to the cafeteria to eat. In public. My buddy may be on the schoolboy's assassination list tomorrow. As a mature man in his 30s, he has a keen sense of emergency and risk avoidance. Let's eat at the school gate. Lin Ran proposed a plan to Su Qingyan. The school beauty and deskmate nodded calmly. Okay. As she spoke, she reached out and casually stroked a strand of hair on her forehead. Just such a casual action made many boys passing by seem to be petrified and stood there, staring at her with their eyes wide open. Lin Ran almost lost his mind a little, and couldn't help but look at her twice more. Sensing Lin Ran's gaze, the school beauty deskmate seemed to have misunderstood, raised her eyebrows slightly, and raised her hand to signal him. Want to hold hands? Lin Ran, ? Lin Ran, ! Someone shook his head like a rattle. No. First day of rebirth. I didn't want to be beaten to death by jealous classmates. So Lin Ran turned around immediately and ran towards the school gate. Su Qingyan, who fell behind, looked at Lin Ran's hurried departure, curled her lips slightly, and showed a bit of regret. My little deskmate, you are still too shy. Then she smiled again and followed briskly. It's okay. It's fun to tease like this, Tilda. Chapter 10. Boys of your age are easily deceived. There is an Allen restaurant at the school gate, which specializes in a variety of rice bowls with rich flavors. The portions are substantial and filling. The only drawback is that the price is a little more expensive than the school cafeteria, and the people who usually come here are students with more generous living expenses. Lin Ran is naturally not one of them. As a player with a weekly living expense of 100 yuan, not counting weekends, he only has 20 yuan to spend every day. When he walked into the restaurant, Lin Ran felt an invisible heavy pressure. After living a new life, his body returned to the age of 18 and became younger, and his wallet also became slimmer. So, there is no time for warmth and nostalgia. What is about to arrive at the battlefield is the tragedy of a heavy bleeding wallet. Su Qingyan is in a good mood. Following Lin Ran, she walked in briskly, looked around with interest, and looked at the simple decoration in the restaurant. She was familiar and friendly, and she couldn't help but show a little nostalgic look. While sighing, naturally, he didn't notice the heavy mood of the person in front of him at all. The two found an empty table and sat down. Lin Ran looked up at the printed menu on the wall: green pepper and shredded pork rice 6 yuan, potato and beef rice 8 yuan, meat patties and chicken steak rice 9 yuan. It's too scary. My scalp is numb. At this moment, Su Qingyan has waved to their boss and ordered a stir-fried mutton rice with green onions. 14 yuan. Then she turned to look at Lin Ran. What do you want to eat? Lin Ran felt his heart bleeding. I'll have a tomato scrambled egg rice. 5 yuan per serving, it's already the cheapest on the menu. Su Qingyan frowned slightly. So vegetarian. Don't you eat meat? The little man in his heart was annoyed and blamed. Boys at this age are growing up, how can they only eat vegetarian food? Lin Ran took a deep breath. It's okay, I'm allergic to meat. At the same time, the inner Q version of the mini Lin Ran had tears in his eyes. It's mainly allergic to expensive. Nonsense. Su Qingyan glanced at Lin Ran lightly, easily saw through someone's nonsense, and immediately decided to change Lin Ran to a potato beef rice bowl. She also ordered 2 bottles of iced sour plum soup, opened one of them and put it in front of Lin Ran, and finally did not forget to educate him in a cold tone. Eat more meat, so you can have strength to study. Lin Ran. You don't feel bad if I don't spend your money. But since I've already ordered it, there's nothing to regret. Lin Ran picked up the sour plum soup in front of him and took a big sip of it. The sour and sweet taste just soothed the trauma of his wallet. At this time, Su Qingyan, who was sitting opposite Lin Ran, was drinking a drink elegantly with a straw while looking at Lin Ran, and asked casually. You spend most of your weekly living expenses on Shen Lingshan. Ahem. Lin Ran coughed violently, and almost choked himself to death on the sour plum soup he just drank. How did you know? Of course I read it from your diary. Su Qingyan secretly pouted in her heart, but her face did not blush, and she maintained a nonchalant and cold look. Many people in the school know it, I heard it from others. Lin Ran's head slammed on the table, speechless. Has the news of my buddy being a dog for others spread so far? Su Qingyan looked at Lin Ran's silence and thought he was still thinking about Shen Lingshan. Suddenly, the school beauty of Su University frowned. This is not okay. How could the man that Su Qingyan had finally found after her rebirth be easily abducted by a Sea King scumbag? However, Su Qingyan looked at Lin Ran, who was sitting opposite her, with a bit of worry in her eyes. Her stupid little classmate was simple and introverted. How could he be a match for a green tea bad woman like Shen Lingshan? If she wasn't careful, she would be deceived and lose everything. No. Su Qingyan immediately made up her mind. She must teach the stupid little classmate in front of her a good lesson. She coughed lightly, and when Lin Ran raised his head and his eyes focused on her, she put on a cold look and began her education work. It is understandable that boys of your age have some vague desires and pursuits for the opposite sex. But even boys should learn to protect themselves when they go out. The world of emotions is very dangerous. Don't be fooled by some girl's sweet words casually, it will be too late to regret it then. As Lin Ran listened, a huge question mark slowly appeared on his forehead. Something is wrong. Why does this school beauty deskmate seem to be educating him suddenly? She is still guiding and educating him on emotional issues. The style is a bit strange. Seeing Lin Ran like this, Su Qingyan thought he was unconvinced and smiled calmly. Why, unconvinced? Do you think you are actually very smart and will definitely not be easily deceived? Lin Ran laughed dumbly. Of course, Buddy is a reborn person, 18 years old, 34 years old soul, what storms have you not seen? Little school beauty, you are little girl who is not yet an adult and you are still educating me, it is really a bit of taking advantage of your age. The next second. Before he smiled calmly and prepared to explain. The school beauty classmate in front of him had already spoken calmly. In the first semester of high school, Shen Lingshan called you Brother Lin Ran, and you gave all your living expenses for a month to buy her a celebrity record. Last winter vacation, she said, our Lin Ran, and you rode your bike every day to deliver her a loving breakfast for half a month. This New Year's Day, she said, I'm considering holding your hand, and you were so excited that you handed in 2 months of food expenses, just waiting for a thank you. And he talked endlessly. He knew everything. From the incident to the lines to the time, place and specific content. It was detailed to the point of having everything. Lin Ran was stunned. The mini-Q version of Lin Ran in his heart was also stunned. My mind was full of thousands of grass mud horses roaring and galloping, leaving only 2 big words messy in the wind. Fuck. Fuck. Looking at Lin Ran's dull and petrified look, Su Qingyan's cold face flashed a smile, and the corners of her mouth slightly raised. There are many more. Do you need me to continue? Take up the straw and take a sip of sour plum soup leisurely. The campus beauty of Su University is calm and composed. Nothing else. I have only read someone's full diary. Chapter 11. We are deskmates, it is normal to have a meal together. Su Qingyan's expression was still calm and composed. You're welcome. It's my duty. So how do you plan to thank me? Lin Ran, ? He was halfway through being moved but he had to hold it back, almost suffocating him to death. How do you want to thank me? The school beauty of Su University seemed to think about it casually for a moment, with a completely unpremeditated look and a calm tone. Then call me sister. Lin Ran looked at the school beauty sitting next to him with a frown. Again. The latter met his gaze calmly, as if nothing had happened, as if it was just a casual remark. I can't call you. How can I call you? I can't call you no matter what. I'll pay for this meal. Sister. The expression changed instantly, someone's eyes were sincere and earnest, just like a long-lost brother and sister, the tone was affectionate and moving, and the acting skills moved people to tears. The expression on the face of the campus belle of Su University did not change at all. She just nodded lightly as if she did not agree or disagree. Then she stood up calmly. As if she reached out her hand very naturally, she rubbed someone's fluffy black hair, and said casually in a light tone. Be good. Then she turned and walked to the counter. She took out her wallet, took out a 100 yuan bill with 2 green jade fingers without any fireworks, and slapped it lightly on the counter. Boss, check out. Then she walked out the door leisurely. When she left, the 18-year-old iceberg goddess recognized as the most cold and bright in Yunnan Middle School, at this moment, her back figure swayed, elegant and graceful, as if she actually revealed a bit of thrilling graceful charm. Lin Ran was a little stunned when he looked at the back of the campus belle and his deskmate walking out the door. Then he suddenly came to his senses. Did the campus belle take the opportunity to rub his head just now? At the same time, a certain iceberg school beauty who walked out of Allen restaurant with a cold and indifferent appearance, was smiling happily in her heart. Oh, I succeeded in taking advantage of little Lin Ran, so happy Tilder. My deskmate's hair feels so good to touch. I'll touch it again next time. Lin Ran followed out of the restaurant. The two did not go back to school directly. Not far from Allen restaurant, there is a small supermarket with a convenience store the size of 2 shops. Su Qingyan asked Lin Ran to wait for her at the door of the small supermarket for a while, and she went in to buy some wet wipes. This kind of work of accompanying girls to buy things, when placed on high school boys, often implies a bit of intimacy and ambiguity. But for this, the school beauty of Su University still looked cold and calm, and gave a high-sounding explanation. It's normal for a deskmate to accompany you to the supermarket to buy things. Other deskmates in the school will do the same. Is the use of deskmate so widespread? Someone was half believing and half doubting, but still chose to accept it calmly. After all, if you think about it carefully, there is no need for the school beauty deskmate to lie to you. She doesn't want anything. So Su Qingyan went into the supermarket to buy things, and Lin Ran was waiting at the door. And just then, a familiar coquettish female voice came from behind. Lin Ran. Lin Ran turned his head and looked in the direction of the voice. He saw Shen Lingshan walking out of a noodle shop next door, standing on the steps at the door, with her arms folded in front of her chest, looking at him proudly and condescendingly. What? Have you decided to apologize to me? Chapter 12. Tear up the green tea, and kill Shen Lingshan. With her arms crossed, Shen Lingshan felt a little proud as she looked at Lin Ran standing at the bottom of the stairs. When she was in the corridor behind the Class 10 classroom, as a witness and a party involved, she saw Su Qingyan take Lin Ran's hand and walk into the classroom, which also caused her a huge psychological impact. I couldn't believe that the school's recognized iceberg school beauty would stand up for a boy. Holding hands. But then Shen Lingshan also reacted. According to her own and her best friend Kui Qianqian's speculation and analysis, all this was just a misunderstanding. A boy like Lin Ran certainly couldn't have anything to do with a school beauty goddess like Su Qingyan. It was just that they were deskmates. Su Qingyan probably didn't want her deskmate to be bullied too much, so she stood up to help and said a few words. Even. It is more likely that Lin Ran himself probably spent a huge price and begged hard to make this school beauty Su feel sympathetic, and then pretended to defend Lin Ran in front of Shen Lingshan. The purpose is also very simple. This Lin Ran is just to make you jealous. Best friend Kui Qianqian made an assertion at the time, and then sneered sarcastically. I really can't tell that this guy is so scheming. He brought up a school beauty like Su Qingyan. If it were any other girl, she would definitely feel a sense of crisis. But he didn't think about it carefully. With his character, who would believe him if he wanted to have an ambiguous relationship with the school beauty Su Lingshan, the more this Lin Ran pretends to play tricks, the more he likes you. As long as you don't fall for it, I promise. Before school is over in the afternoon, he will definitely come to you again. Sure enough. Just after eating noodles at a noodle shop at the school gate, Shen Lingshan saw Lin Ran standing at the door of a small supermarket, waiting for her. She was completely convinced of her judgment. Shen Lingshan's face became more and more proud, and her tone became more commanding. I'll tell you. If you want me to forgive you this time, 2 or 3 gifts are not enough. Apologize. Lin Ran looked at Shen Lingshan as if he was a lunatic. What are you apologizing for? He was waiting for the school beauty to sit next to him. Where did this green tea girl come from? Shen Lingshan smiled confidently. You usually eat in the cafeteria. You came to the school gate today, aren't you waiting for me to come out? What's there to be stubborn about? Lin Ran was made to laugh. What a guy, so ordinary and yet so confident. I'm not waiting for you. Shen Lingshan chuckled again, as if she saw through someone's mind. If you're not waiting for me, who else could you be waiting for? Lin Ran, I've seen through your little tricks a long time ago. I know you want to make me jealous, so you spent a lot of effort to invite Su Qingyan to act with you. But do you really think I will believe such a childish trick? It would be fine if Su Qingyan wasn't mentioned. As soon as Su Qingyan was mentioned, it reminded Lin Ran of the social dead scene in Alan restaurant where his school beauty classmate listed his black history. The temples on his forehead were throbbing. It was so embarrassing. Then he looked at the creator and culprit of his dark history, and Lin Ran's face suddenly turned black. What the school beauty deskmate said was right. To continue to get entangled with such a person will only make oneself unhappy. So he was too lazy to continue to argue with the other party. Yes, you see through it. You are really awesome. Are you finished? After you finish, go back to where you should stay. I am waiting for someone. Shen Lingshan was confused by Lin Ran's completely unexpected attitude. Come back to your senses. Looking at the boy in front of her who had always obeyed her and been attentive to her in the past, Shen Lingshan, who had always been pursued as a little princess, felt a surge of anger rising from her heart, and blurted out with annoyance. Lin Ran, what's your attitude? I tell you, this is the last chance I will give you. Apologize to me now. Otherwise, it will be too late for you to regret. Just at this time, in the small supermarket next to the noodle shop, Su Qingyan was about to walk out of the store after buying things and paying the bill. Just as she reached the door, she heard Shen Lingshan's annoyed questioning and scolding from outside. The school beauty of Su University stopped immediately. She quietly approached the plastic door curtain at the supermarket exit without making a sound, and pricked up her ears to eavesdrop on the movement outside. She was not in a hurry to go out and show herself. She wanted to see how the stupid little classmate would behave after she had just taught him a lesson. Listening to the warning and threat of the little princess Shen Lingshan in front of her, Lin Ran raised his eyebrows. What do I have to regret? Shen Lingshan smiled confidently. If you don't apologize. From now on, it's not just holding hands. I, Shen Lingshan, will never talk to you again. I will never say another word to you again. No matter how much you want to find me in the future, I won't even look at you. We're done. Lin Ran nodded, okay. Shen Lingshan, ? The sudden turn of events almost made the little princess suffer a back injury. It felt like he was confidently using a big move that he thought was a surefire way to kill the opponent, thinking that it would have amazing lethality and get a 5 kill. In the end, it was a blank. Instead, he seemed to be hit by a sudden sledgehammer and was dizzy. Shen Lingshan couldn't help but get angry. What do you mean? Lin Ran kindly explained, it means literally. My deskmate told me to study hard and not to deal with girls of questionable character. Then he looked at Shen Lingshan and added. Specifically you. I am questionable. Shen Lingshan was so angry that her mind was about to go blank. How dare you say that to me? Lin Ran looked innocent. It wasn't me, it was my deskmate who said that. Shen Lingshan was going crazy. You listened to what your deskmate said. Lin Ran looked at Shen Lingshan and finally showed a hint of mockery on his face. I can't listen to her, why should I listen to you? One sentence. With a mocking arc at the corner of his mouth. Like a sword coming from the west. Directly killing, Shen Lingshan was speechless and completely speechless. Someone continued to speak slowly. Say it again. My deskmate is the school beauty, she is pretty, tall, and speaks nicely, why shouldn't I listen? Looking at Shen Lingshan, who was a little dazed by his own killing, Lin Ran added a final blow. She doesn't look like you. She's short. She doesn't look good either. Chapter 13 School beauty is happy, sister is so charming. And not like you. She doesn't look good. 2. 10 simple words. Directly killing, Shen Lingshan was stabbed to the bone on the spot. Lin Ran, remember, I will never forgive you again. This sweet and lovely class beauty of Class 7, who was recognized as a senior in the 3rd year of high school, even said something in a crying voice, and then ran away without looking back. Only Lin Ran was left standing there. He also attracted many strange looks from passers-by and classmates, speculating whether someone was the legendary scumbag who bullied the girl. Lin Ran himself didn't care. Was what he said just now too much? Compared with what the other party did to him in the previous life or the first 2 years of this life, what he said was even light. Besides, he was telling the truth. Compared with the school beauty deskmate, a class beauty of Class 7 who only likes to act cute and coax ignorant boys is indeed just average. At this time, footsteps were heard behind him. Lin Ran turned around and saw that the school beauty deskmate had already bought things and walked out, holding a pack of wet tissues and a few fruit candies that were probably change. The school beauty deskmate still looked cool and indifferent, and glanced at Lin Ran. Who were you talking to just now? Lin Ran also replied casually. I just passed by, I'm not familiar with her. The school beauty deskmate nodded, pretending not to know, and then calmly gave Lin Ran a piece of fruit candy. It's the change. Try it. The little man in his heart was satisfied watching Lin Ran tear open the candy wrapper and put the fruit candy in his mouth, thinking of the sentence he just overheard, my deskmate is a school beauty, and she's pretty, he couldn't help but smile again. Little fool. You're pretty sweet. Take it as a reward. There was nothing wrong along the way, and they returned to school. The classmates in the classroom had already returned one after another, and they were all sleeping soundly on their desks. It's easy to feel sleepy after eating, and Lin Ran also began to feel a little confused. He lay down on the table without hesitation and began to catch up on his sleep. Su Qingyan, who was sitting next to him, also threw a piece of fruit candy into her mouth. She leaned slightly to one side, tilted her head, and looked at Lin Ran, who had quickly fallen asleep, with one hand on her chin. She couldn't help but smile. She felt a little sweet in her heart. It was 1:40 in the afternoon. The bell rang. It woke up the students in the classroom. The students sighed and climbed up from their desks, sat up straight and tried to cheer up to welcome the new round of classes in the afternoon. Lin Ran's class 30 was a liberal arts class. After the division of liberal arts and science, the two courses of physics and chemistry were removed, leaving 6 main subjects: Chinese, mathematics, English, politics, history and geography. The first geography class in the afternoon. The second political class. There are less than 2 months left before the college entrance examination, and now it has entered the review stage. It's mainly all kinds of memorization, such as values, ideological connotations, various monsoons, ocean currents, and mountain terrains. After 2 classes, people were dizzy and their heads were buzzing. Only a few top students in the class can easily absorb and digest such a vast amount of knowledge and test points. Energetic and bright in class. While listening attentively, she writes down quickly in textbooks and notebooks with a pen. Su Qingyan is the best among the top students. As the recognized school beauty goddess of Yunnan Middle School, she is not only the undisputed first in appearance, but also her academic performance is also the best in the grade. During the 3 years of high school, she almost never fell out of the top 3 in the grade in every monthly, midterm and final exam. In the previous life, she won the title of 3rd place in liberal arts in Nan province and the top scorer in liberal arts in the city with a high score of 658. It's really excellent. During class, Lin Ran tilted his head slightly to look at the school beauty classmates sitting next to him, admiring the picture of this cold and bright girl listening attentively and seriously, and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. In comparison, he, the deskmate, was totally unbearable to look at. In the previous life, his grades in the class were always in the middle and lower levels. Especially after becoming Shen Lingshan's bootlicker, he couldn't focus on studying, and his ranking once dropped to outside the top 40 in the class. In the end, he almost didn't make it to the 2nd-tier line in the college entrance examination. Recalling this, Lin Ran raised his eyebrows again. But reborn. He is different in this life. As if he thought of something, a confident smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. And the next second, a note was pushed over by a green jade finger without any fireworks. Lin Ran glanced at the note. It was still beautiful handwriting, with powerful strokes. Don't smile foolishly, concentrate on the class. Lin Ran. Looking up at the school beauty deskmate next to him, the latter still looked cold and focused on the podium and listened to the class seriously. Strict supervision from the school beauty class monitor. Someone turned his head away awkwardly and began to listen to the lecture attentively. When he turned his head, he just missed a glimpse of the school beauty classmate who seemed to be listening attentively with a cold expression at this moment, but the corner of her mouth was slightly raised with a smile. Little idiot. You are so absorbed in peeking at your sister. Is your sister so charming? Thinking like this, the little man in his heart couldn't help but show a little reserved pride. Also, he had no idea that he had actually misunderstood. The last class in the afternoon was a class meeting. Teacher Liu Chun stood on the podium, facing the class with a stern face. We will have a mock exam next week. Study hard for me. There are 6 liberal arts classes in the whole year. In the last mock exam, the average score of our class 10 dropped to the second to last. The number of students in the top 30 and top 50 in the year is only 4th among the 6 classes. There is only 1 in the top 10. It's so embarrassing. I was in the office, in front of the head teachers of other classes, and I almost couldn't raise my head. The unlucky guy who hit the gun of the teacher and became a punching bag. In the back row, Lin Ran showed a bit of understanding when he heard it. Indeed. It was the same in the previous life. His class 30 has always been at the bottom of the 6 liberal arts classes in this year. Class grades are also linked to some implicit performance evaluations of the head teacher. No wonder Comrade Liu, the head teacher of class 10, is so annoyed. I was a little distracted by my thoughts. Suddenly, a familiar roar was heard again. Lin Ran. Get up. Lin Ran came to his senses and stood up subconsciously. Looking in the direction of their voice, I found that the head teacher Liu Chun on the podium was staring at me angrily, and other students in the class were also looking at me with gloating eyes. Liu Chun slammed the table and shouted. How dare you be distracted? Do you know how many points you got in the last mock exam? Chapter 14. The whole class was shocked. The school beauty wanted to tutor Lin Ran. How many points did you get in the last mock exam? It is still too difficult for a person who was reborn after being hit by a truck more than 10 years later to recall this kind of question. Fortunately, Lin Ran didn't have to think about it. Liu Chun, the teacher on the podium, was already furious and started to list the details for him. Math 71. Chinese 82. English 74. The total score of the three subjects of politics, history, geography and liberal arts is 143. On average, each subject is less than a passing score. There are 49 people in the class. You are ranked 44th. I've dropped 6 places compared to the previous midterm exam. Looking at the last student in the class sitting by the window in the last row of the 4th group in the classroom, Liu Chun was heartbroken and disappointed. This Lin Ran. When I first entered high school, I could at least rank around 30th in the class, and my grades were just about average. I don't know what happened, but my grades started to decline since my second year of high school. Now that the college entrance examination is approaching, I'm almost falling to the bottom of the class. As a responsible class teacher, on the one hand, I feel anxious and annoyed about my students' lack of ambition. On the other hand, as a class teacher, the class performance is linked to his implicit performance appraisal and various teacher benefits. Every time there is a laggard who affects the class performance, his heart bleeds. Forget about benefits, performance and so on. Among the 6 liberal arts classes, Wu Jinder, the head teacher of class 13, had always been at odds with him, but his class's test scores were always better than his class 10. Usually in the classroom and office, this old bastard surnamed Wu would be sarcastic and mocking to him in all kinds of ways. Today, he was treated with disdain again. I was so angry that I wanted to roll up my sleeves and beat someone up. I came to the classroom for the class meeting with a lot of anger in my heart, and when I saw him, my anger suddenly flared up again. He found an outlet for his anger and started scolding Lin Ran. After saying this, he was still furious and gave Lin Ran an ultimatum with a gloomy face. Second mock test this time. You must raise my score by at least 20 points. Stop dragging down the class average. If you can't improve it, wait for me to call your parents. I heard Liu Chun say this. Fun with words. Teacher, raising the score by 20 points is too difficult for Lin Ran. He's busy chasing after the most beautiful girl in class 7. I don't have time to review. The tone was full of ridicule and sarcasm. As soon as these words were spoken, there was another burst of laughter in the classroom. When Liu Chun heard this, his face turned even darker, and he glared at Lin Ran angrily. What class beauty! What a mess! Anyway, we have to raise it by 20 points. I don't care what method you use, you have to grind your sword to death before the battle. Practice questions and memorize by rote. Or find other students to tutor you. I don't care about the process, I only care about the result. Hearing this, the boy who had just laughed at Lin Ran started laughing again. Forget it, teacher. If we ask Lin Ran to find other students, wouldn't that only cause trouble for others? He's already in love, so don't let others become lovesick too, or they'll be ruined together. The laughter in the classroom suddenly became louder. At the same time, many of the top students in the class also looked alert, and there was a bit more caution and distance in their eyes when they looked at Lin Ran. They are different from Lin Ran, who is at the bottom of the class. In this second mock exam, they will all work hard to get good results and rankings. If Lin Ran really took what the head teacher Liu Chun just said as a sword of imperial power, and shamelessly came to them for cancelling, then their own review time and energy will be delayed and affected. Amidst the laughter, Lin Ran, who was standing, seemed not to care. If he had encountered such a situation in his previous life, he would probably have been extremely ashamed and at a loss. But this life is different. He was in his 30s and had already developed a thick skin. He didn't care about such childish malice that was not presentable. Moreover, improving his grades might be difficult for him since he was a bootlicker in his previous life. But for him who was reborn, it was not difficult at all. At this moment, no one present knew what kind of awesome trump card and reliance he had in his hand after his rebirth. So at this moment Lin Ran just smiled and looked at the head teacher Liu Chun on the podium. Teacher, it's okay. I can review it myself. After a pause, he spoke again sincerely. I will try my best not to hold the class back. Try to improve it by 200 points. As soon as these words came out, the whole class couldn't hold it in anymore and burst into laughter. The boy in front of him was almost out of breath from laughing, and pointed at Lin Ran. It's still 200 points. Why don't you blow it up? I think it's hard for you to get 2 points, right? Then the boy turned to look at Liu Chun and laughed. Teacher, Lin Ran is quite self-aware. He knows that no one in our class wants to bother with him, so he took the initiative to avoid making trouble for himself. This way, I can save you some worries, har ha har har. On the podium, Liu Chun frowned slightly as he listened. Although she was displeased with the sarcastic tone and contemptuous attitude of the boy. But what the other party said makes some sense. Being the last one in the class is annoying enough. If it really affects the review state of a few top students in your class, the loss will be even greater. As for Lin Ran's statement of improving by 200 points, he naturally didn't take it to heart and just thought that Lin Ran was bragging for the sake of face. After thinking for a while, Liu Chun said with a stern face. That's fine. Still, you should focus on reviewing on your own. If you really need help with any questions, you can ask me or other teachers. The words have not been finished. Suddenly, a cool and pleasant voice sounded in the classroom. No need to look for anyone else. I'll do it. The atmosphere in the classroom suddenly became quiet. You can hear a pin drop. At this moment, all the students in the classroom, including the head teacher Liu Chun, looked confused and subconsciously looked in the direction of the voice. Into the eyes. It was in the last row of the fourth group in the classroom, right next to someone who was at the bottom of the class. The cold and bright beauty from Yunnan Middle School suddenly stood up and stood shoulder to shoulder with Lin Ran beside her. Su Qingyan glanced coldly at all the students in the classroom. Wherever her sight passed, the students who had just followed the leading boy to laugh at Lin Ran could not help but feel guilty and subconsciously lowered their heads to avoid her. Finally, she looked at her homeroom teacher Liu Chun on the podium, as if she was afraid that the teacher and the students didn't understand, and repeated it in a calm and light tone. I'll tutor Lin Ran. The words fell. The students finally came to their senses. Immediately, their whole classroom exploded and became boiling with excitement. What? Chapter 15 Brother, you should start a class and teach us how to pick up girls. Their whole class was shocked. Lin Ran was also confused. Originally, he had enough confidence and reliance, and he was ready to brag with confidence. It turns out that it's not enough. Who would have thought that the school beauty's deskmate would also stand up? As soon as she opened her mouth, she completely stole his limelight. The students in class 10 in the classroom could hardly believe their ears. They looked at the cold and graceful Soochow University beauty, and then looked at Lin Ran standing next to her. It's simply unbelievable. As the school belle, Su Qingyan's cold and beautiful personality is recognized by the whole class and the whole school. Everyone knows that this ice goddess is usually cold and proud, and even among girls, few can get close to her. Even though he had excellent grades and was ranked first in class 10, he always kept to himself and focused on his studies. There were boys in the class before who approached the campus beauty of Soochow University under the pretext of seeking advice and tutoring, hoping to strike up a conversation and take the opportunity to get close to her, but they always came back rejected. But now, for Lin Ran, whose grades were almost at the bottom of the class, the campus beauty of Soochow University actually stepped forward and offered to personally tutor and review. No. The boy who laughed at Lin Ran the loudest in front couldn't help but get anxious first. He blurted out a sentence and then immediately thought of a quick solution. Teacher, Su's grades are of course good, but she still has to strive for our class to be first in the grade in the second mock exam. We can't let Lin Ran drag us down. Liu Chun, the head teacher on the podium, was also surprised and stunned that his beloved student would stand up and express his opinion in such an uncharacteristic way. He frowned hesitantly. Yeah, that makes sense. I think we should just forget it. The words have not been finished. But Su Qingyan interrupted him first. It's okay, teacher. As the class monitor, it is my job to tutor and help my classmates. Tutoring Lin Ran's homework will not affect my own grades. In fact, tutoring and explaining the questions will help me to gain a thorough understanding of the subject. The words were spoken calmly and with good reasoning. Liu Chun couldn't help but nod his head in agreement. After thinking about it, he made up his mind and made the final decision. Okay. Then Lin Ran's tutoring task will be handed over to you. As long as you can make sure it doesn't affect your own review energy. After giving Su Qingyan such caring instructions in a friendly manner, the head teacher turned his gaze to Lin Ran the next second, and immediately became sharp again, with his tone suddenly rising an octave. Lin Ran, cherish this opportunity and ask Qingyan for advice with an open mind. Don't be lazy and affect Qingyan-san. Be careful or I'll hold you responsible. Lin Ran, understood. The two finally sat down again. At the podium, the head teacher Liu Chun began to talk about other class affairs. In the back seat, Lin Ran glanced at his school beauty deskmate and spoke in a low voice. Don't bother, I can do it alone. The next second, the school beauty's deskmate's light voice came over. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going out of my way to help you. It's just my duty as class monitor and deskmate. Lin Ran, oh, thank you. Su Qingyan, you're welcome. When Su Qingyan said this, her expression remained cold and indifferent, and there was no sign of anything unusual. But in fact, the truth is, when she saw so many people in the classroom laughing and mocking Lin Ran just now, she could no longer hold back her anger. He stood up without any hesitation, just to stand up for Lin Ran. You are unwilling to tutor my cute little deskmate. Chapter 16. The school beauty was shocked for the first time. She got all the answers right. Su Qingyan was also being asked questions while having dinner with a few female classmates. The three girls who had dinner with Su Qingyan were considered to be at the top of the class in terms of appearance and academic performance. Compared with others, he has a slightly closer and more familiar relationship with the campus beauty of Soochow University. So I can boldly ask her some questions. Qingyan, why did you agree to tutor that Lin Ran? Among the three girls, Yuan Tingting, who was the representative of the Chinese class in Class 10 and also one of the most beautiful girls in the class, couldn't help but be curious and spoke first. This is the first time I've seen you volunteer to tutor someone. The other two girls nearby also nodded vigorously after hearing this, their gossipy spirits burning in their hearts. Just one-on-one tutoring. If we also count the moment today when Su Qingyan woke up from a nightmare and suddenly hugged Lin Ran, and the shocking hand-holding scene that was said to have happened in the corridor during break. It is really impossible not to allow those who are interested to connect these fragments together and let their imagination run wild. Could it be that? Is there really some hidden relationship between this girl in front of them, the school beauty of Yunnan Middle School who is recognized as an ice goddess, and that last place student Lin Ran? Facing the gossipy and curious gazes of several companions, Su Qingyan just looked indifferent, and spoke in a casual and calm tone, still using the same rhetoric she had given to her class teacher Liu Chun before. Nothing. I am the class monitor, and it is my duty to help my classmates. Yuan Tingting was skeptical. It's too official. I haven't seen you help other people before and they were boys. The campus beauty of Soochow University still looks calm. It's just a coincidence. He is my deskmate, so it is convenient for me to help him with his studies. Another girl next to her couldn't help but ask. What about the fact that you took the initiative to hug him this morning, and during the break, I heard that you took the initiative to hold Lin Ran's hand in front of that beauty from Class 7. Su Qing didn't blush or feel nervous, and she lied without blinking. It's all coincidence. Then he even looked at the three female classmates in front of him leisurely, smiled faintly and asked back. Otherwise, could it be that I have fallen in love with her? As soon as these words came out, the three female classmates also smacked their lips and showed their approval, and they were immediately relieved. That's right. You are the beauty of our Yunnan school, how could you actively like the last one? That's what I said. It must be a coincidence. Qingyan was just being kind. The school beauty of Yunnan Middle School is actively liking a boy who is at the bottom of the class. Even they themselves didn't believe what they said. It really seems to be just a coincidence. However, she didn't know that looking at the three girls in front of her, the mini-man in Su Qingyan's heart was smiling with eyes curved, as proud as a little fox. It was easy and I got away with it. The time is not right yet. It is not convenient to let others know the truth for the time being. She has to continue to maintain her personality, otherwise it will make others feel it is too abrupt and reveal flaws. Come on. Anyway, the current situation is quite good, there is no pressure, I can get along with my little classmate comfortably, and I can pretend to tease each other casually when I have nothing to do. Therefore, there is no rush to officially announce it to the outside world. Just take your time. However, just when the campus beauty of Su University was thinking about it with such satisfaction, the content of the conversation between the three girls sitting in front of me suddenly changed. But speaking of it, in fact, that Lin Ran is not useless, right? After all, Shen Lingshan can take a fancy to her, and that picky boy in class 7 has quite a high standard. My personality is a bit shy and introverted. Chapter 17. The school beauty is not convinced and tries her best. Fill in the blanks of the 2 English test papers and recheck them carefully according to the standard answers. After confirming it again, Su Qingyan couldn't help revealing a look of surprise and disbelief in her eyes. Shuren Middle School in the neighboring county is a provincial key school, just like Yunnan Middle School. The English papers in the first 2 mock exams were slightly more difficult than the recent English papers at Yunnan Middle School. These 2 closed test questions. At Shuren Middle School next door, most students made at least 3 for mistakes in each exam on average. For Su Qingyan, as a recognized school beauty and top student, she always ranked among the top 3 or even first in her grade. However, when she was asked to do 2 papers, she accidentally made a mistake in a question on prepositions. But this little classmate in front of me. How come I got all the closed questions correct on both papers? It was rare that the cold school beauty's brain was not enough. She looked Lin Ran up and down, somewhat doubtful and confused. That's not right. According to her understanding of someone in her previous life and after reading all of the other person's diaries, she became more familiar with him. The academic performance of my stupid little deskmate has been declining since the 2nd semester of his senior year, and is really close to the last place in the class. The scores in English subject have always been hovering around 80 points out of a full score of 150. How is it possible to get all the answers right so easily? And it only took 20 minutes. At this moment, Lin Ran looked relaxed, and even had time to appreciate the cute expression of surprise on the face of his school beauty classmate. Do you believe it now? Reborn to the present. This was the first time I took the initiative when facing the school beauty deskmate. The sense of accomplishment was slightly satisfied. But to Su Qingyan, Lin Ran's words seemed like a small provocation. Her eyebrows raised. The unyielding spirit of the domineering female president of a listed group who was worth billions in her previous life has returned. Little things. You're competing with your sister, aren't you? Come again. His face quickly returned to its calm expression, and he nodded calmly with a non-committal attitude. Well enough. These 2 papers are quite simple. As she spoke, Su Qingyan took out another test paper from her English textbook. She covered the answers to the closed test with tape and handed it to Lin Ran. At the same time, she looked up at him and said in a calm tone, "Do this again." Lin Ran met the gaze of the school beauty deskmate, and their eyes met in mid-air. Inexplicably, it seemed as if the 2 of them sparked a bit of competition. Lin Ran raised his eyebrows slightly and smiled calmly. No problem. Then Lin Ran started writing again and quickly finished the questions. This time, the efficiency was also extremely high, and it only took 10 minutes. After finishing the questions, Lin Ran handed the 3rd test paper back to the school beauty's deskmate. If you do it so quickly, you'll regret it if you don't check it. Su Qingyan pretended to be calm and commented, but in fact she quickly took the test paper, took a deep breath, uncovered the answer part covered by the tape, and began to check and compare. The inspection and comparison process is very short. A moment. It has been confirmed. Su Qingyan took a deep breath, and this time the shock in her eyes was even more serious. Actually, I got all the answers right again. This time I could say it was just luck, or maybe I had done this test before. But the second time, you can't use these reasons. To explain. Because the 3rd paper that Su Qingyan gave to Lin Ran just now was not even the homework assigned by the teacher, but an English competition paper that she had specially found herself, originally just for her own practice and further improvement. The closed questions in this competition paper are much more difficult than those in ordinary school mock exams, and they are all long and difficult sentences. It is difficult to understand the meaning of the article just by reading it. Even with Su Qingyan's academic level. When faced with the various clever, hidden and tricky traps set in this closed test, I fell into them several times without realizing it. 15 questions. Su Qingyan herself got 3 questions wrong. If it were other students in the class who could get 120 or even 130 in English in monthly and midterm exams, they might make 5-6 mistakes in the closed test for the competition. Result. Arrived at someone's place. In just about 10 minutes, another perfect answer was obtained. Now Su Qingyan couldn't help but look at her little deskmate again, her eyes filled with shock and disbelief. The mini-man inside has opened his mouth into a cute O shape. Is this still the little deskmate she knows? That little fool who often complained in his diary that there were too many English clothes exercises and they were too difficult. How to transform? Suddenly, I felt like a competition-level English expert. I wonder what the school beauty sitting next to me is thinking at this moment. After finishing 3 papers, Lin Ran felt refreshed and relaxed. Competition question. That's all. I haven't taken this kind of high school exam papers for some years, but I have become so proficient in it that it is almost ingrained in my bones, and I haven't lost my signature skills. Lin Ran didn't know that all the diaries he had written in his previous life until high school had been read by the school beauty sitting in front of him. But even if the diary was read, even the school beauty's deskmate couldn't possibly know. Someone failed the college entrance examination and barely got into a second-tier university. His parents used up most of their savings to support him to attend an ordinary university. When he saw the extra white hair on his parents' heads, Lin Ran, who was filled with extreme guilt and self-blame, finally came to his senses. After entering university, I started to work harder. Study hard day and night. While studying, I also worked as a part-time tutor to earn a living. Even after graduating from university, his first job, which lasted for 3 years, was working as a teacher in a well-known local education and training institution. They specialize in tutoring students in various subjects, and even become the best and most outstanding all-round employee in the institution within just 1 year. His main direction of counseling is. It's a high school subject. So, everything is clear. This is what Lin Ran relies on for his confidence. I have worked in an education and training institution for 3 years. As a teacher, I have done countless high school examination papers in various subjects, and analyzed and explained countless key exercises to students from various aspects and angles. Such a terrifyingly rich reserve of knowledge. Now I have been reborn and returned to high school, facing the challenges of these subjects again. It was simply a reunion with an old friend. One can even say it is a domineering and calm dimensionality reduction attack. Chapter 18 School Bell. Lin Ran, I can't do this question. Pass the English test. Followed closely by Chinese, mathematics, politics, history, and geography. Lin Ran opened his mouth to read all kinds of classic poems and poems that must be memoized in high school, and he spoke so fluently that there was no knot in his tongue. Mathematics took a little more effort, but I could basically solve several of the most difficult last-minute questions in other schools' midterm exams, and get at least an 80% mark. Wenzong's political and historical background was once again very handy, and he was able to solve problems with ease. Even Su Qingyan, who had finally managed to compare the standard answers, her eyes lit up and her tone showed a bit of excitement. This is wrong. The next second, someone glanced at the answer and casually pointed out. The answer is wrong. Su Qingyan took another closer look. I found out that the answer was wrong. As a result, various real question books and test papers were piled up like a mountain in front of the desk. Having passed the test perfectly, Lin Ran leaned back in his chair comfortably, even crossing his legs leisurely, looking calm and relaxed. Simple. Take it down. He has 3 years of experience as an excellent all-round teacher in his previous life, and has gained experience honed from countless real test papers. Facing the current high school exam papers, he is just like the top master who has learned the Dugu 9 swords in Jin Yong's martial arts novels. One sword breaks everything. Solving the questions is as easy and carefree as butchering an ox, and everything will come naturally. Of course, it has been a long time and some of the knowledge points from that time have been forgotten. But as long as he is given some time to review, the domineering promise he made to his homeroom teacher, old Liu, in the class meeting would be fulfilled, and it would be no problem for him to improve his score in the second mock exam by 200 points. I raised my head and looked at my classmate, the school beauty, who was acting a little silly and dazed for the first time. Lin Ran raised his eyebrows. Do you believe it now? The cute little Lin Ran in his heart was already feeling proud in advance, with his hands on his hips, his eyebrows raised, and he laughed out loud 3 times. I was led around by the nose and suppressed by the school beauty for the whole day. Finally got my revenge. Cool. Su Qingyan finally came back to her senses. Trying to restore his expression to a calm and cool one, he nodded slightly. Yes. Then she couldn't help but look at Lin Ran, and couldn't help wondering. How did you suddenly become so good at studying? Lin Ran was well prepared for this question. I had prepared a draft in my mind when I was taking the test, and now I spoke without blushing or getting nervous, making up a story. It wasn't that sudden. Actually, I've been secretly studying hard these days. I'm waiting for this second model to astonish everyone. It sounds a bit far-fetched. But it is still more reliable than him telling his school beauty deskmate that he is a reborn person. After all, even if I tell the truth, there is no way people would believe it. Su Qingyan was somewhat skeptical when she heard this. She couldn't help but look Lin Ran up and down with her beautiful eyes. She always felt that something was strange. Working hard secretly and taking extra classes to review. This really has to happen. How could she not know since she had read Lin Ran's diary carefully? Does this kind of thing need to be kept secret to the point of not even mentioning it in a diary? But after thinking about it, Su Qingyan decided to accept this answer. After all, this should be the only reasonable explanation. What other reasons could there be? It was impossible for her little deskmate to be reborn. Seeing that the school beauty deskmate accepted his explanation, Lin Ran also smiled. In this case, the review later. I don't need to bother you, I can do it myself. Su Qingyan hesitated and nodded. At this moment, her mood was a little complicated and tangled. On the one hand, she was very happy and relieved. After all, if Lin Ran really ranked last in grades like in the previous life, then no matter how hard he tried to accommodate and cooperate, he and Lin Ran would still have to go to different universities after the college entrance examination. Long-distance relationships are never a good thing. But now it seems that this problem is no longer a problem. The little person in Su Qingyan's heart stared at her little classmate intently, looking at him with wonder and amazement as if he were a treasure, and couldn't help but smile. Oh my, you are indeed my sister's deskmate Tilda. He actually managed to hide such a great ability secretly. Sister's judgment is right. The silly little classmate is not stupid at all when he studies seriously. He is a little genius. On the other hand, the mini-man couldn't help but feel melancholy again. It was originally planned that by taking the opportunity to tutor Xiao Lin Ran, I could have a deeper contact and interaction with him openly. Provide hands-on tutoring and explain test questions. I can also satisfy my urge to pinch my classmate's face, rub his head, etc. Now it seems that this beautiful picture is about to fly away with wings. But, after all, she was the campus beauty and top student in her grade at Yunnan Middle School, and the female president of a listed company she built in her previous life. His brain started working quickly, and in the blink of an eye he came up with a solution for Su Qingyan. Eyes light up. Got it. During the last self-study session in the evening, Lin Ran casually flipped through the history textbook and marked some key points with a black fountain pen. Sudden. There was a faint fragrance wafting quietly beside me. Turning around, I found that my school beauty classmate had come closer to me. Her expression was still cold, and her tone was calm and indifferent. Busy? If you're not busy, please help me look at this question. As she spoke, the school beauty deskmate pushed an English test paper over and pointed to a reading comprehension passage. I'm not very good at this one. A question mark slowly appeared in Lin Ran's head. What the hell? He almost wondered if there was something wrong with his ears. Your classmate, who is the top student in the class and firmly in the top 3 in the grade, the school beauty and the top student, comes to you to ask you for help with a question. Although he had just shown off his skills from his previous life. But given the level of my school beauty's deskmate, there has never been any need for her to ask me for advice. What level of question could stump the school beauty's deskmate? Lin Ran glanced at the reading comprehension section on the test paper. More question marks popped up in my head. This is not difficult. It's just a very ordinary level of reading comprehension passage. At least 10 people in the class can do it, if not 20. He looked at the school beauty sitting next to him with some doubt. You don't know how to do this. The school beauty's deskmate looked calm and composed, without changing her expression. Well, no. Lin Ran was even more puzzled. Could it be that his buddy had misjudged and underestimated this reading comprehension passage? Was there some hidden trap in it that he hadn't noticed? Don't believe in evil. Hurry up and read it again carefully. Sitting next to Lin Ran, Su Qingyan looked at the former, who was immersed in serious research. The mini man in my heart is already smiling. If the mountain doesn't he come to me, I will come. I will go to the mountain. If I can't tutor my desk mate, then I'll let him tutor me. Well done, Su Qingyan. It's me as expected. Chapter 19. Of course it's different, he and I are desk mates. Oh, and this. Lin Ran suddenly jumped up as if a spring was installed on his butt. School is over. Go home, go home. Next second. Someone showed unprecedented efficiency, sweeping all the textbooks and homework into the school bag in the blink of an eye, throwing the school bag behind him with a flick of the strap, and at the same time flipping the chair under him onto the desk. Their whole set of movements is done in one go, like flowing water. Su Qingyan was distracted. I found that Lin Ran had already slipped out of the back door of the classroom like an arrow, carrying his school bag on one shoulder. She almost laughed when she saw someone running away like that. Little idiot, why are you running so fast? I won't eat him. When Su Qingyan quickly packed her school bag and prepared to follow Lin Ran, she was unexpectedly stopped by someone behind her. Student Su, wait a minute. Su Qingyan subconsciously stopped and turned to look. But I only saw Zhu Hua, the English class representative, walking towards me quickly. This person was also the first boy who took advantage of the afternoon class meeting when the head teacher Liu Chun was educating Lin Ran to tease and ridicule Lin Ran. Su Qingyan frowned slightly, thinking that she would be unable to catch up with Lin Ran due to the delay. She was not in a very good mood, and her expression returned to its cold look. What's up? And when he saw the campus beauty of Suqiao University, she actually stopped and waited for him. Zhu Hua's face suddenly showed some joy, and he quickly spoke seriously, with a sincere face. I just want to persuade you. Although your homeroom teacher has assigned you a task to tutor Lin Ran. But for a poor student like Lin Ran, it's useless to waste time on him. Spending too much energy on him will only affect your own college entrance examination review state. I think you should just leave him alone. Zhu Hua thought he had spoken sincerely and caringly, and at the end he added. If you feel it's hard to explain to your teacher, I can help you explain it. After saying. Zhu Hua felt that he had acted like an extremely gentleman and couldn't help feeling happy and proud. Unexpectedly, after hearing Zhu Hua's words, Su Qingyan frowned again, and her expression became even colder. Do I know you well? Zhu Hua was stunned for a moment, and was somewhat at a loss for words by this sudden question. I? Then he was interrupted by Su Qingyan again, and spoke in an even colder tone. Let me correct you. This is not a task assigned to me by my homeroom teacher. I took the initiative to ask to tutor Lin Ran. And Su Qingyan paused for a moment and glanced coldly at Zhu Hua in front of her. No one else needs to worry about my affairs. We are just classmates. I hope you can be more careful and behave properly as classmates. I don't want to hear what I just said a second time. After saying that, she stopped paying attention to the other person, turned around and walked out of the back door of the classroom with her school bag on her back. Zhu Hua came back to his senses, and a feeling of unwillingness and dissatisfaction suddenly arose. In a fit of rage, he couldn't help but blurt out. But aren't you and Lin Ran just classmates? Su Qingyan paused for a moment. Turn around. He glanced at the other person calmly. No, the same. He and I are desk mates. Chapter 20. Mom and Dad, I can't see you getting old. It takes about 10 minutes to ride a bike from school to home. Lin Ran's home is on the 13th floor. When he was in the elevator, he couldn't help feeling inexplicably nervous. The elevator door opened and I walked through the corridor towards my front door. I looked at the shoe cabinets and sundries placed in front of the corridor, the extremely familiar furnishings, and the familiar aroma of food that seemed to be drifting along the corridor. Lin Ran's mood suddenly became relaxed again. Walk to the door of your home. Take out the key, put it into the door lock and turn it. He took a deep breath and opened the door. What caught my eye was the living room that I once knew so well and loved. Under the dim and soft light, the simple furnishings and decoration of the house were clearly visible. A middle-aged woman was bending over and sweeping the floor with a broom. Lin Ran shouted. Mom. Hearing the call, Lin's mother Zhao Shuqin raised her head and saw Lin Ran standing in front of the door. She immediately smiled with surprise. Xiao Ran is back. Then Lin's mother turned around and shouted towards the kitchen. Lao Lin, my son is back. Then I heard hurried footsteps coming from the kitchen. Lin Guozhen, wearing an apron and holding a spatula in his hand, walked out quickly. When he saw Lin Ran, he immediately smiled and greeted him warmly. Are you back? Hurry up and change your shoes and come in. Dad made a midnight snack for you. Then he turned to look at his wife and complained. What do you mean your son? Isn't he my son too? Lin's mother said confidently, Xiao Ran is so handsome because of me. Of course he is my son. What, Lin Guozhen, do you have any objection? She glanced at her husband sideways when she said the last sentence. Comrade Lao Lin, who was used to being dominated by his wife, was immediately defeated by his wife's gaze and raised his hands in surrender. No problem, no problem. Your son, your son. Looking at the familiar scene of parents bickering in front of me. Long time no see. At this moment, Lin Ran couldn't help wanting to laugh, but his nose felt slightly sour for some reason, and he thought of many things in a trance. In his previous life, he failed the college entrance examination and barely made it to the second-tier line. Instead of blaming him, his parents sacrificed their reputation, tried every possible way to ask for help from others through their connections, and finally worked hard to scrape together the family's few savings and did their best to send him to the best university possible. He still remembers that late night, when his parents came back from visiting their contacts, sweating profusely, unable to hide their tiredness, but still trying to smile cheerfully and optimistically, and told him, "It's done. With this score, I can at least get into Donghai University of Technology. Your parents can only help you get here, but going to college depends on your own efforts tilde." But that night, he accidentally heard his parents whispering in the bedroom. I heard that the son of Mr. Zhu next door didn't get as high a score as Xiao Ran, but he knew the vice president of the college at Donghai University and managed to get his son in. Our Xiao Ran is such a smart kid, but he didn't do well in the college entrance exam. He could have gone to a better university. Silence. Finally, he heard a faint sigh from his father Lin Guozhen in the bedroom. We, as parents, are incompetent. Another thing. Inspired by what happened late that night, he indeed turned over a new leaf and worked hard after entering college. I ranked high in academic performance and kept receiving scholarships. While studying, I worked part-time to earn living expenses. After graduation, I found a job and worked tirelessly. Later, his work gradually improved. The career is on the right track. But it has also become busier. His parents, who were far away in his hometown, often called him. He talked endlessly about his work progress on the phone. His parents listened quietly and patiently, and were happy for him, but every time he ended up. They are more of a worrying reminder. Don't work too hard. You can make endless money. Resist and take care of your body. When I have time, I'll go home once in a while. But because he was immersed in work, he rarely went back in the next 10 years. When he returned home many years later, his parents were so happy that they were nearly 60 years old and their hair was grey, but his father was still excited and couldn't wait to roll up his sleeves and go to the kitchen to cook a sumptuous meal for him. He sat on the sofa with his mother, who happily took out her phone and asked him to teach her how to use some new apps. Your aunt's son's daughter next door is teaching her mother how to play TikTok. Any other special effects? You also teach me how to use it. When he opened the mobile phone software and demonstrated several special effects to his mother, when he used one of the aging effects, he suddenly turned into a little old man in the mobile phone camera. A little funny. But his mother was very happy to see it, and excitedly asked him to take a few more photos with this special effect. Clap again. Leave it in the photo album so I can show it to your dad too. Then, as if by accident, he said, otherwise, mom and dad won't be able to see you grow old. Just one sentence. Looking back now. Suddenly, Lin Ran's eyes turned red. In the previous life, I was unable to provide for my parents in their old age and even ended up having to bury them before they died. It is extremely unfilial. Looking at the parents in front of me who are still young and healthy. Lin Ran suddenly walked forward quickly and hugged his parents tightly. Lin Guozhen and Zhao Shuqin were both caught off guard and panicked. What's wrong? Were you bullied at school? Lin Ran raised his head, tried his best to calm down, and smiled. It's all right. I just missed you guys. After a moment, a family of 3 sat at the dining table having a midnight snack. The midnight snack is not very rich, but it has a familiar taste. Lin Ran picked up his bowl and chopsticks and ate heartily. His food tasted extremely delicious. Lin's father and mother, who were sitting opposite him, couldn't help laughing. Eat slowly, no one is competing with you for it. It's like a wild boar reincarnated. It's not afraid of being laughed at. While watching their son eating supper, Lin's father and mother chatted casually. And soon, the content of the conversation attracted Lin Ran's attention. Lin's mother, Mr. Lin, how is your factory doing recently? Father Lin, not very good, we can only make do with it, how about yours? Our factory is not doing well either. Recently, there have been rumors that we may have to lay off employees. At this point, Lin's mother Zhao Shuqin frowned slightly, revealing a distressed look. I'm also annoyed. If you leave now, you can still get a resettlement fee. If I stay, my salary will have to be cut again. I don't know what to choose either. Chapter 21 The Storm at the School Gate. Shen Lingshan's Revenge. Hearing this, Lin Ran remembered. In his last life, he also experienced this scene. When he was in his second year of high school in 2007, the state-owned factory where his mother worked was really not doing well and began to lay off employees. His mother finally chose to take a salary cut and stay. However, after a year or two, the factory went bankrupt and was sold directly. In the end, the mother could not escape the ending of being laid off. But actually, when faced with the decision, my mother also hesitated. Lin Ran clearly remembers that although her mother worked in a state-owned factory, she actually always had her own ideas and ambitions, and she had always dreamed of opening her own shop and doing business. Only, on the one hand, influenced by traditional concepts, people subconsciously seek stability and dare not take risks easily. On the other hand, the problem actually lies with the son. Forget it. Father Lin shook his head after hearing this. With our limited abilities, how can we start a business? Besides, Xiaoran is in the critical stage of preparing for the college entrance examination. You work in the factory, so at least you have time to take care of the family. If I really go out to do business, I won't be able to take care of him. After hearing the first half of the sentence, Lin's mother Zhao Shuqin was actually a little unconvinced. But I heard my husband mention his son in the second half of the sentence. She was convinced immediately. Although she still felt somewhat unwilling and regretful, Mother Lin still nodded seriously. That's right. Then I'll go talk to the director and ask him to lower my salary so that I can stay here. Listening to the conversation between his parents, Lin Ran felt warm but also guilty. If it weren't for myself, perhaps parents would not need to have so many concerns, and the mother would have the opportunity to pursue her career dreams. But since I'm reborn in this life, we should make some changes so that we will not have any regrets, and we should not leave any regrets for our parents either. After thinking for a while, Lin Ran looked up at his parents and said, I think Mom should just quit her job. It's good to start a business. Mom, think about it. Your factory's current profits are already very poor. Even if you reduce your salary and stay, you may not be able to hold on for a few years. If the factory goes bankrupt, you will still be laid off. It's better to take the resettlement money and come out early to give it a try. Besides, if your business succeeds and you make a lot of money, when I go to college and live in a big city, you can help me buy a house to live in, right? What you said makes sense. And the last sentence, which seemed like a joke, made Zhao Shuqin even more excited. That's not wrong. Besides, Xiaoran will go to college in the future. If she can get a house earlier, it will be much more stable. Lin Guojing thought it made sense, but he still frowned. But with your current studies, someone has to take care of your family. Lin Ran laughed. Dad, I'm not a kid anymore. I can handle studying on my own. Zhao Shuqin pouted when she heard this. You're just bragging. If it's really like what you said, then you would have ranked 40th in the class in the last mock exam. How can your father and I be at ease? Lin Ran spoke without blinking. That was because I didn't use my full strength before. It's different now. The second mock test will be next week. I'll show you my skills then. It'll be easy to get into the top 10 in the grade. Top 10 in the year group. Zhao Shuqin and Lin Guojing looked at each other and laughed immediately. Don't brag without thinking. Okay, don't even mention being in the top 10 in your grade. If you can get into the top 10 in your class in this second mock test, your mom will listen to you and quit your job to try your luck. Lin Ran was waiting for these words, and immediately stretched out his hand. Is it a deal? Lin's mother, Su Qingyan, also stretched out her hand and happily high-fived her son, looking quite heroic. It's a deal. I had a midnight snack with my parents. After washing up in the bathroom, Lin Ran returned to his room. Before I went back to my room and closed the door, I could vaguely hear my parents talking quietly in the living room while they were cleaning up the dishes. Lao Lin, did you notice that Xiaoran seems to be a little different after coming back today? You think so too? He hugged me when we met, which almost scared me. And then there were all those things he told you during the analysis. It was so confusing. I thought it was rare for him to be so motivated, and he even promised us that he could get into the top 10. Do you think your son will do well in the mock exam this time? It's not that easy to be in the top 10. Wait, why is he my son now? In the end, it turned into a joke between an old couple. It has coziness and warmth. Lin Ran smiled slightly and then closed the door quietly. After returning to his bedroom, he did not rush to bed, but sat down at the desk. Take out the textbooks and test papers from the school bag. Take a deep breath. I am trying hard to get back the feeling of working like a teacher in my previous life, doing exercises like crazy. Let us get started. Early morning. The bright sunshine came into the room through the window and fell on the bed. Lin Ran rubbed his sleepy eyes, stretched and yawned loudly. I was too focused on studying last night. In addition to the basic homework, I also did an extra history and English paper, and stayed up until 2:30. I don't know what time it is now when I woke up. Wait a moment. Lin Ran's eyes suddenly widened. What time is it? Lin Ran hurriedly put on his clothes and packed his school bag, rushed out of the room without taking time to wash up, said hello to his parents who were having breakfast in the living room, and rushed out the door and downstairs in a hurry. Get on your bike. Rushing all the way to school. I didn't expect that on the second day of my rebirth, I would be in danger of being late for class because I stayed up late to prepare for the test the night before. I thought of the gloomy face of our class teacher, old Liu. Lin Ran, who was riding on the bicycle, couldn't help but shudder, and immediately increased the horsepower and speed to sprint at full speed. It was originally a journey of more than 10 minutes. It was directly shortened to 7 minutes. Kill to the school gate. Lin Ran got out of the car in a handsome and cool manner, and immediately pushed the car towards the school gate. Just at this moment, a shout suddenly came from behind. Lin Ran, stop. Lin Ran stopped suddenly and subconsciously turned around to look in the direction of their voice. But they saw Shen Lingshan, her best friend Su Qingyan, and two other girls walking towards this side. It was Su Qingyan who just called him out. Seeing these people, Lin Ran was about to turn around and leave. Dude, I'm in a hurry for early morning self-study, so I don't have time to chat with you anymore. But at this time, several girls were already approaching quickly. When Su Qingyan saw Lin Ran turning around and pushing the cart away, she immediately shouted angrily. Stop. Don't leave. The sound was a bit loud and attracted the attention of many other students around the school gate. Lin Ran looked at the other party speechlessly. What's up? Seeing Lin Ran's impatient look, Su Qingyan's face became even more angry. How dare you say that? Explain for yourself, how did you bully our Lingshan yesterday? You haven't apologized to her yet. The other two girls from class 7 next to them, who were probably Shen Lingshan and Su Qingyan's best friends, also chimed in. That's right, apologize. There is no shame in a grown man bullying a little girl. When several of his best friends helped him stand up and accused Lin Ran. As the person involved, Shen Lingshan did not speak, but stood timidly with red eyes, looking like she had been greatly wronged. It looks pitiable. For a time, many students from other classes and years around him looked at Lin Ran with a somewhat unkind look. This guy is bullying a beautiful woman. It's really not a good thing. She could hear the whispers and discussions around her. Shen Lingshan still looked aggrieved and pitiful on the surface, but at the same time she secretly looked at Lin Ran, feeling even more proud in her heart. This was something she had discussed with her best friend Su Qingyan. I was so humiliated yesterday. At the school gate today. Lin Ran must be good looking. Chapter 22. The school beauty holds Lin Ran's hand and breaks through the level domineeringly. Shen Lingshan felt that she had already convinced Lin Ran. Regardless of whether this licking dog who used to follow her around all the time and was always on call had suddenly taken the wrong medicine to treat her like this all of a sudden. But in her opinion, all this was actually just a trick played by Lin Ran. I think that by ignoring myself and retreating in order to advance, I can increase its status and weight in my heart. That could not be more wrong. Shen Lingshan sneered in her heart. Not only can she see through the other party's childish tricks at a glance, and the other party must first pay the price for his attitude like yesterday. No one has ever been so cold and rude to her, Shen Lingshan, and said such outrageous things. She specifically chose this time today, and it was at this specific place in front of the school. She took Su Qingyan and 2 other best friends from her class and made a special trip here to intercept Lin Ran. She knew that Lin Ran had always been thin-skinned and introverted. Then today, we must put pressure on the other party at the gate of this school, in front of the public. He had to bow his head and apologize to himself. As long as this breaks the other party's ridiculous self-esteem and backbone that seems to be erect. After this, Lin Ran could only continue to bow down and be Shen Lingshan's follower. Apologize. You must apologize. Su Qingyan and 2 other girls from class 7 beside her were still putting pressure on Lin Ran, and their attitude became more and more aggressive. Several girls gathered together like this and almost surrounded everyone, accusing and scolding everyone. This kind of pressure. If it were any other ordinary 18-year-old boy, he would probably be a little overwhelmed and defeated. But when it came to Lin Ran, someone seemed not to be affected at all, looking at the indignant girls from class 7 in front of him. Oh. And then just ignore it. If you continue, you have to push the bicycle and leave. It was as if the people who were being accused and oppressed by these people had nothing to do with him, Lin Ran, at all. Completely treat the other person as air and nothing. This almost made the 3 girls, led by Su Qingyan, so angry that they felt suffocated in their chests and vomited blood. Su Qingyan immediately stepped forward, stretched out her hand and grabbed the front of Lin Ran's bicycle, and said loudly, "Don't leave." The other 2 girls from class 7 also followed immediately, standing on Su Qingyan's left and right, blocking Lin Ran's way. Yes. You can't leave until you apologize. Apologize. Shen Lingshan, who was standing aside, continued to look pitiful with red eyes. But my heart has become more and more proud. This was the benefit of her bringing Su Qingyan and 2 other best friends with her. There is no need for him to take action personally, as long as he plays the role of a pitiful victim. But Su Qingyan and the 3 of them are known for their sharp-tongued skills in their years. With them stopping Lin Ran couldn't even think about bowing his head and apologizing to himself today. This moment, Shen Lingshan continued to act like she was bowing her head and about to cry, making people feel pitiful. But out of the corner of his eye, he glanced at Lin Ran quietly, with a hint of mocking playfulness like a cat playing with a mouse at the corner of his mouth. Now, what else can you do? The situation seems to be really deadlocked. Su Qingyan grabbed the front of Lin Ran's bicycle and wouldn't let go. 3 girls stood in a row in front of him, blocking his way, unscrupulous and aggressive. He looked as if he would not give up until someone apologized today. Change to anyone else. At this point, everyone would probably give in. A hint of pride flashed across Su Qingyan's eyes. Chapter 23, The school beauty bore too much breakfast and didn't he want to waste it? Boys and girls walked side by side, holding hands. I walked all the way to the fork in the road near the underground garage on campus before I stopped. Lin Ran turned to look at Su Qingyan. Thanks for just now. Although in fact, Su the teacher basically solved the problem. But the school beauty's deskmate showed up in a luxury car and helped support her and slap her in the face. Especially looking at the shocked and ugly expressions of Shen Lingshan, Su Qingyan and the other 2 girls from class 7. This feeling is actually quite refreshing. After hearing Lin Ran's thanks, the campus beauty of Su University still looked calm and spoke calmly. Nothing. Between deskmates, we just help each other, as we should. You helped me with my homework yesterday, I'm just repaying you, don't get me wrong. A misunderstanding is certainly not a misunderstanding. But then again, Lin Ran took a look at his left hand, which was still being held by his school beauty classmate. Can you let go of my hand now? Oh. The school beauty sitting at the same table did not change her expression, and finally let go of my hand as if nothing had happened. Sorry, I forgot. Lin Ran felt as if he had been pardoned. He said hello and goodbye to the school beauty and his deskmate, then hurriedly pushed his bicycle to the underground garage. If it's any later, you'll be late. As she watched the figure pushing the cart away, Su Qingyan's pretended coldness suddenly disappeared. She lowered her head to look at her fair hands and curled her lips slightly. Xiao Lin Ran, why are you so anxious to let go? Isn't it hard to hold my sister's hand? But then she couldn't help but smile happily. Never mind. It was a pleasant surprise to be able to hold the hand of my deskmate as soon as I entered the school gate early in the morning. It's a good deal. Thanks to that troublemaker Shen green tea. In vain, he gave himself an honest reason to hold hands with his deskmate. Thinking of this, Su Qingyan turned to look in the direction of the school gate where she had just arrived, and expressed her gratitude to Shen Lingshan from a distance with a smile. Thank you, Tilda. At this time, Shen Lingshan at the school gate suddenly trembled, vaguely feeling that she had been plotted by some nine-tailed demon fox again. And at this moment, however, the campus beauty of Su University was already walking towards the classroom with her hands behind her back, humming a tune and briskly walking. Park your bicycle in the school's underground garage. Lin Ran ran all the way in the teaching building, climbing 3 flights of stairs at a sprint speed of 100 meters, and finally rushed to the back door of class 10 before the morning bell rang. I just happened to meet my best friend Zhao Ku coming out of the back door to go to the toilet. Meet Lin Ran. Zhao Ku's eyes lit up immediately and he pulled her back, excitedly lowering his voice to share gossip. Brother Ran, big news. Have you heard? Just now, when the school beauty Su got out of her Maybach at the school gate, she took the initiative to walk in hand with a boy. A buddy from the next class saw it and just texted me about it. I heard that several classes downstairs were going crazy about it. While excitedly sharing gossip, Zhao Ku secretly glanced at Lin Ran to observe his expression, with a hint of showing off in his heart. After all, as a close friend, I still felt a little jealous and unconvinced when I saw someone having several intimate interactions with school beauty Su yesterday. That's better. The school beauty Su took the initiative to hold hands with other boys in public at the school gate and walked into the school together. Compared to this, the interaction between your brother Ran and school beauty Su yesterday was actually nothing. When Zhao Ku thought about it this way, he immediately felt more balanced and relieved. Sometimes, as a close friend, you are afraid that your brother will eat grass, but you are also afraid that your brother will live too well. It is this kind of complicated feeling. Lin Ran was now concentrating on returning to his seat in the classroom, thinking about not letting. Chapter 24, Lin Ran copied school beauty Su's homework. Listening to the school beauty's calm and composed explanation, Lin Ran looked at the breakfast placed in front of him, then looked at the school beauty sitting next to him, with a look of suspicion on his face. Or too much? Can you make just one more portion? I also didn't hear that my school beauty deskmate usually eats 2 cups of soy milk and 2 servings of rice balls for breakfast. Lin Ran couldn't help but look at the breakfast on the desk in front of him. The soy milk in the disposable plastic cup is fresh and hot. The rice balls are generously stuffed with pork tenderloin, sausage, shredded potatoes and fried eggs, and coated with a thick layer of salty sauce. It looks mouth-watering. Someone swallowed his saliva in frustration. Thank you. The school beauty's deskmate was still cold and indifferent. She had already turned around and picked up the Chinese textbook to continue reading the text. You're welcome. It's what a deskmate should do. Here, Lin Ran couldn't wait to start enjoying his breakfast and was enjoying it very much. Naturally, he didn't notice that the school beauty classmate next to him had her face half hidden behind the Chinese textbook, with a faint smile on her lips. The little man in Su Qingyan's heart smiled with eyes curved, quite proud. Oh my Tilda. The first time I fed my little classmate, it was a success. In the last row of seats in the 4th group of the classroom, the boy was eating his breakfast contentedly. The girl next to him was holding her textbook and concentrating on her morning reading. From time to time, she would secretly glance at the boy from the corner of her eye, and she couldn't stop smiling. The bright morning light shines through the window, reflecting such a picture. Harmonious and warm. But I don't know. At this moment, somewhere in the classroom, a pair of eyes with cold and jealous eyes were watching this scene. The first class on Wednesday morning was English class. Towards the end of morning reading, the groups began to collect the English homework from the previous day. The leaders of each group collected the students' homework one by one from the front to the back, while Zhu Hua, the class English representative, stood in front of the podium and walked down slowly. When all the English homework papers of the 4 groups were collected and submitted, Zhu Hua casually flipped through the pile of test papers in his hand. Seemingly intentionally or unintentionally. I found one of them. As his eyes scanned the contents on the test paper, a hint of cold pride flashed across Zhu Hua's eyes. Then his gaze swept across the classroom and fell on the last row of the fourth group. Zhu Hua held the pile of test papers and walked straight towards Lin Ran and Su Qingyan. Come to the last row of seats. It just so happened that the team leader of the fourth group was about to return to his seat from the last row. Seeing Zhu Hua coming over, the team leader was stunned, thinking that he was looking for him. What's wrong? Is our group complete? Zhu Hua nodded without comment. Yes, they are all collected. It has nothing to do with you, go back. Just like the attitude of a superior towards his subordinates in the workplace, the tone is full of arrogance and domineering. The team leader left with a puzzled look on his face. Only Zhu Hua was left standing in front of Lin Ran and Su Qingyan in the last row of the fourth group. Su Qingyan raised her head and looked calmly at the English class representative whom she had taught a lesson yesterday. What's up? Zhu Hua gave Su Qingyan an elegant smile that he thought was a gentleman. Don't worry, Su, it has nothing to do with you. Your homework is fine. Immediately. His eyes fell on Lin Ran, who was beside Su Qingyan, and a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. But the person next to you. This is a big problem. The voice also became louder, attracting the attention of many students who had finished their morning reading. Looking at Zhu Hua, a hint of coldness flashed across Su Qingyan's eyes, and she felt a little angry. You don't even need a previous life. With her experience and vision as the female president of a listed group, she could easily see the malicious intentions of Zhu Hua in front of her to find fault. Without waiting for her to speak again, Lin Ran, who was sitting next to him, asked first with a puzzled look on his face. What's my problem? Lin Ran was also a little unhappy. His buddy stayed up late last night to review and do the exercises. He did not take their homework too seriously and got all the answers correct on the English test. Even his handwriting was so neat and beautiful that he almost moved himself. What could be wrong with this? Zhu Hua seemed to be waiting for Lin Ran to say this. He immediately sneered and took out Lin Ran's homework paper. In front of the whole classroom, he slammed it on the desk in front of Lin Ran. Your paper. It was copied. Bang. The sound of test papers slamming heavily on the table, accompanied by Zhu Hua's sudden and sharp accusation. With great force. All of a sudden, more students in the classroom couldn't help but turn their heads and look over. After hearing Zhu Hua's words clearly, they couldn't help but be moved. Copy homework. Is it Lin Ran? This guy's grades are indeed always at the bottom, but he is introverted and honest, and he doesn't look like someone who would do such a thing. Is this the legendary knowing a person's face but not his heart? Lin Ran glanced at the test paper on the desk, then glanced at Zhu Hua, who had a proud look on his face. Copy. Do you have any evidence? Zhu Hua looked at Lin Ran with a look of pity on his face, as if he had seen through someone's tricks. Lin Ran, stop being so stubborn. As the class representative, I got the standard answers for this test paper in advance. I've looked at your test paper, and you got all the answers right, from the multiple choice questions to the closed questions to the reading comprehension questions. Not counting the essay, I got full marks for the objective questions. This is the final exam paper for the number 2 high school next door. It's very difficult. Even the top students in the key classes of number 2 high school got at least 3 or 4 questions wrong after finishing it. You're right about all of them. Who do you think you are? At this point, Zhu Hua showed a winner's smile and made a proud judgment. So, there is only one possibility. Your test paper was copied from classmates Su's. After the classmates understood the situation, they all looked enlightened. I see. Makes sense. They also did yesterday's English test homework. It was indeed quite difficult, and it was impossible for most people to get all the answers right. Only a top academic master like Su Xiaohua can do this. Lin Ran himself was a last-place student, and the only explanation for his wish to get all the correct answers on the English test was that he copied the homework of the school beauty Su. Bang! He put the textbook in his hand down heavily. At this moment, Su Qingyan's face was as cold as frost, and she looked at Zhu Hua coldly. Who told you? Lin Ran copied my homework. Chapter 25. This move, combined with their husband and wife, kills the scheming man. Right. He liked Su Qingyan. He was jealous of Lin Ran, and that's why he deliberately picked trouble with her. But these things, can it be directly put on the table? The relationship between men and women in high school should be an ambiguous gray area that is shrouded in secrecy and can only be communicated through eye contact. You just move it directly into the scorching sun and expose it completely. This is not. Chun Chun wants to make people socially dead. All of a sudden, the atmosphere in the entire classroom changed. No one cared anymore whether Lin Ran had really copied the homework of the campus beauty of Soochow University. The classmates all looked at Zhu Hua with ambiguous looks. So that's how it is. Zhu Hua actually secretly likes school beauty Su. Still being disliked. Big news and big gossip. Looking at the English class representative in front of me, he looked anxious and frightened, as if someone had stepped on his tail. Lin Ran, the culprit, looked calm and indifferent. It's just jealousy between high school boys. This kind of little trick is too easy to see through for an old man like him who has the soul of a 30-year-old hidden in his body. Dealing with the cracking is just as easy. As long as you expose other people's little thoughts, they will be thrown into chaos. Looking at Zhu Hua, who was panicking and at a loss, Lin Ran shook his head repeatedly in his heart. Take a look. It's just that I like a girl. How can you possibly chase someone when you're so shy after your little tricks are exposed? Suddenly there was the sound of a chair being pushed away. Lin Ran turned around and saw that his school beauty deskmate had stood up. He glanced at all the classmates with a cold and indifferent look. Let me clarify one thing. Did you make her unhappy by talking about your school beauty deskmate? This thought came to Lin Ran's mind. Zhu Hua was so excited that he almost cried. Yes, 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 Su classmate, please help me clarify. You are worthy of being my goddess. I really didn't like the wrong person. The result is the next second. But I heard the school beauty deskmate speak without any fireworks. Lin Ran said that there was a rumor that Zhu Hua liked me, but I rejected him. Let me clarify. This is not a rumor. The air was silent for a moment. Immediately, the classroom was in an uproar. Wow! Amidst the huge uproar, Zhu Hua's eyes went dark and he almost fainted on the spot. Su Qingyan had already calmly returned to her seat, her expression still cool and indifferent. He just tilted his head slightly as if inadvertently. His eyes happened to meet Lin Ran's. Lin Ran didn't know if it was an illusion, but he seemed to see the school beauty classmate slightly raised her eyebrows at him, and there seemed to be a hint of smile in her cold eyes. This move. It's called a perfect match between husband and wife. Kill the clown scheming man. Just at this moment, as the bell rang, a middle-aged male English teacher in his early 40s walked in from the front door of the classroom, holding textbooks and handouts. Seeing the noisy scene in the class, the English teacher was curious. What's going on in such a bustle? Zhu Hua felt as if he had found a life-saving straw. He suddenly showed an excited and ecstatic expression and shouted loudly. Teacher! I want to file a complaint. Chapter 26. Get out of the way, Buddy is going to show off. The English teacher of class 30 is a middle-aged man in his early 40s, his surname is Cai. His classmates privately nicknamed him Lao Cai. She is easy to talk to, a little bit feminine, and likes to lift her index finger occasionally. However, he has strong professional teaching ability and has studied in Europe for many years. Compared with other English teachers in the school, he has an authentic London accent and is quite charming when reading the text. And at this moment, the arrival of Lao Cai became Zhu Hua's life-saving straw. It was like seeing a savior. Zhu Hua was so excited that he almost cried. He complained loudly. Teacher, Lin Ran got all the objective questions on the English test right. It's impossible for him to get that right with his academic performance, so he must have copied Su Qingyan's homework. Even after I pointed it out, he still denied it. In such a rage, he even started to hate the campus beauty of Su University. He used to call her Student Su, but now he just calls her by her full name. Old Cai was a little confused, his eyes fell on Lin Ran and Su Qingyan. What's going on? Lin Ran stood up and pointed at Zhu Hua with a straight face. Oh, he liked classmate Su and was rejected. Zhu Hua was so angry that he was about to go crazy. I'm not. You, what nonsense are you talking about? The teacher didn't ask you that. If killing was not against the law, he would have wanted to rush up and strangle Lin Ran to death. Su Qingyan, who was standing aside, looked at the English teacher on the podium and spoke calmly. Teacher, that's not the case. It's Zhu Huo himself who's talking nonsense. Lin Ran wrote his own test paper and did not plagiarize at all. I can vouch for him. Zhu Huo sneered angrily. He copied your homework. What's the point of you testifying for him? Do you think the teacher will believe you? The words haven't finished yet. Old CAI on the podium already had a look of realization on his face, and clapped his hands. So that's how it is. Since classmate Su has testified, it must be correct. As he spoke, old CAI raised his finger in joy as usual, and looked at Lin Ran with a little more admiration and appreciation. Yesterday's test was quite difficult. If he can get all the objective questions right, then it seems like there's a new talent in our class. Lin Ran, right? You've made great progress. Keep up the good work. Lin Ran looked humble. Thank you, teacher. I will try my best. The teacher and the student went back and forth like this. Zhu Huo next to him was stunned on the spot. No. This is different from what he thought. Teacher, I am your English class representative. Shouldn't you support me? Why should Su Qingyan just speak up to testify? Just believe it unconditionally. The incident was solved so simply. Satisfied with his quick and swift handling, the English teacher raised the textbook in his hand. Okay, let's go to class. Everyone, take out your textbooks. We will review the next unit today. There was the rustling sound of turning pages of textbooks under the podium. Only Zhu Huo was left standing in the back aisle, unable to accept this reality. When Lin Ran sat down, he glanced at the English class representative and kindly advised. Go back quickly. Or Batman will come to catch you. Zhu Huo. As the English teacher of Class 10, Mr. CAI has his own teaching methods. In addition to the basic review of vocabulary and analysis of parts of speech and grammar, his teaching has one more step, which is to play the text recording at the end for everyone to follow along. Not only must you learn to write, you must also learn to read. Although now is the time to review and prepare for the exam, but I also want everyone to remember. English is an applied skill and cannot remain on paper. Old CAI said this with certainty. After reading it aloud, he glanced at the students in the audience and raised his charming orchid finger as usual. Next, I'll ask a classmate to stand up and read it to everyone. As soon as these words came out, most of the students in the classroom immediately lowered their heads. Especially those who have poor grades or poor oral English, they can't wait to bury their heads in textbooks. Lao Cai was somewhat dissatisfied and pointed out the name directly. Class representative, you demonstrate. Zhu Huo, who was called, stood up confidently. As a class representative, his oral ability is among the best in the class. Moreover, he had done his homework and made adequate preparations in advance, just waiting to be called upon to be in the spotlight today. So in front of the whole class, Zhu Huo held the textbook and began to read the text aloud confidently. Objectively speaking, he read very smoothly and fluently, and his spoken English imitated the British accent deliberately, which showed that he had worked hard. Although it sounded a bit artificial to professionals, his level was much higher than that of most ordinary students. After finishing the text, Zhu Huo sat down with a smug look on his face, obviously very proud and satisfied with his performance. Old Cai also nodded approvingly. Good. Then he continued to scan the students in the audience. Who else is coming next? Well, of course I don't want to stand up and embarrass myself. And just at this moment, suddenly a voice was heard. Teacher, I suggest that Lin Ran come. The students looked in the direction of their voice in surprise and found that the person speaking was Zhu Huo again. Zhu Huo was looking towards Lin Ran's seat with a sneer, his eyes flashing with cold and vicious light. Since he can easily complete such a difficult English test paper, I suppose reading a text shouldn't be a problem, right? Old Cai also thought it made sense and nodded happily. Okay. Then come on, Lin Ran. Lin Ran, who was called, stood up obediently in front of everyone. At this time, Zhu Huo was already extremely proud and excited. He wished that Lin Ran would be humiliated to death on the spot, so he stabbed him again with an extremely vicious and sinister look. Lin Ran, you can't just read it casually. You managed to get full marks on the objective questions in such a difficult English test. With such a high level, Your spoken English should be in standard British accent, right? Lin Ran looked at Zhu Hua and gave him a kind word of advice. British or American accents are not that important. As long as you can speak fluently and people can understand you, that's enough. Do I need your useless education as I am the class representative? Zhu Hua sneered. Stop making excuses for yourself. If you ask me, you can't even read a complete sentence, har ha har har. As he said this, he couldn't help but burst into laughter. Lin Ran also smiled. Then he picked up the textbook and read the text slowly. When the first few words are spoken, old Cai on the podium's eyes suddenly lit up, and he looked excited and surprised. When the first sentence of the text is read, Su Qingyan suddenly turned her head to look at someone next to her. She was so surprised that all the coldness on her face disappeared, and she couldn't help but open her mouth slightly. The student read the entire text from beginning to end in one breath with an extremely strong and pure British London accent at an extremely fluent speed. Zhu Hua's laughter had already stopped abruptly. But inside the classroom, the atmosphere was boiling like a tide. Chapter 27. The School Beauty is proud little thing, I can't stop charming you. After the English class, many classmates came over to Lin Ran, surrounded him, and actively and humbly wanted to ask him for advice on how to practice speaking. There were even several girls among them. They surrounded Lin Ran with chirping sounds, and each of them blinked their big black eyes and looked at Lin Ran with a bit of admiration and worship in their eyes. How can this be? Unable to sit still, the campus beauty of Su Qingyan University immediately frowned and showed the cold and majestic dignity of a class monitor. Okay. If you want to practice speaking, go find a teacher or read along with a tape. Lin Ran still needs to study. The class monitor's attitude was still somewhat intimidating, and the female classmates left reluctantly and regretfully. The campus beauty of Su Qingyan University turned around and looked at Lin Ran, still with a cold and indifferent look. Don't get me wrong. The second mock test will be coming soon. I just don't want them to disturb your review. The straight-minded man didn't notice anything wrong and nodded humbly. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. The campus beauty of Su Qingyan University turned her head calmly. At the same time, he glanced at the backs of the girls leaving, and the little man in his heart snorted and crossed his arms. My little deskmate is mine. No one is allowed to grab it. Wait until the second class in the morning is over. Then it was time for morning exercises. The passionate athletes' march, with a strong sense of rhythm, resounded throughout the campus through the loudspeakers, as if activating and awakening the entire Yunnan Middle School. On the playground, students from each class in the 3 grade levels lined up in an orderly manner. The bright sunshine of early summer in May falls. It reflects a vibrant vitality. National Middle School students radio gymnastics, dancing youth. As the music plays, morning exercises begin one by one. The students in the queue kept stretching their arms and legs, shaking their heads and arms to the music. Looking around, the entire playground was like the wind blowing through a wheat field, rising and falling like waves. This is the team of Class 10. Lin Ran and Su Qingyan are both taller and stood at the end of the queue. The campus beauty of Su Qingyan University was doing morning exercises carefully and meticulously following the music, her posture relaxed, elegant and calm. The sunlight falling on her face is breathtakingly beautiful, like an ideal in the world. Her long legs still show slender and moving curves even wrapped in school pants. Many boys nearby and even in the next class couldn't help looking over here, and were almost stunned by the sight of the campus beauty of Su Qingyan University doing morning exercises. Even Lin Ran is not immune to this. I couldn't help but take a few more glances at the school beauty classmate in the queue next to me. It is so beautiful that it is in a completely different style from others. Just at this time, Su Qingyan turned her head and glanced over with a calm gaze, as if casually. The boys who were peeking at her turned their heads away hurriedly like thieves, not daring to look at the school beauty. Su Qingyan's eyes swept over Lin Ran. He just happened to catch someone's gaze on him. Their eyes met in the air. Lin Ran also quickly turned his head away, feeling a little guilty. Su Qingyan's expression remained unchanged. She calmly withdrew her gaze, looked straight ahead again, and continued doing her morning exercises. The corners of his mouth once again raised a proud arc of victory. Small things. I can't stop charming you. Chapter 28, 100 Tips for School Beauties to Seduce You. There is a 20-minute break after the second class in the morning. So after morning exercises, there is still some time left. The students on the playground dispersed. Many people rushed towards the convenience store. A scene full of people. As an adult with a soul in his 30s, Lin Ran naturally had no interest in joining the crowd at this time. Just then, his best friend Zhao Ku came over and greeted him warmly. "Brother Ran, let's go back to the classroom. There are too many people in the canteen. Only a fool would squeeze in with them." Lin Ran nodded happily, turned around and prepared to go back to the classroom with Zhao Ku. But he was stopped by a cold and pleasant voice. "Lin Ran." Hearing their voice, Lin Ran turned around and saw his school beauty deskmate walking towards him. He wondered, what's the matter? The school beauty's deskmate glanced at Lin Ran, pointed in the direction of the canteen, and said concisely, "Accompany me to the store." His tone was still calm, as if he was talking about a trivial matter that was taken for granted. Just hearing this, Zhao Ku beside him had already retreated silently and consciously. The lesson of yesterday is still fresh in my mind. He didn't want to offend the campus beauty of Su Qingyan University again. Especially when I think of Su Qingyan's gaze that was so cold that it seemed like it could freeze people to death. His desire to survive suddenly became very strong. The best friend left, and Lin Ran was confused. "Why do you want me to accompany you? You want to go to the convenience store, but I don't want to go." A top straight guy who was a bachelor in his previous life thought so. The school beauty remained calm on the same desk, and pointed at the huge crowd on their way to the canteen. "There are too many people. I can't squeeze through." Lin Ran laughed in silence. "You can't squeeze through, so it's useless to include me." The words haven't finished yet. However, he only saw that the school beauty classmate had already extended her hand to Lin Ran leisurely, with a cold and calm tone. "So, hold my hand. If you hold hands, one person will lead the way in front while the other will be pulled from behind, and you can indeed squeeze through the crowd. The method is good." Lin Ran was stunned for a moment, and became a little alert. "Holding hands? That's not a good idea. Holding hands with the school beauty and my desk mate in public, with so many people watching, I felt like my life was in danger. Speaking of which, why does it seem like my desk mate is finding excuses to hold my hand every day recently? Is it an illusion?" The campus beauty of Su Qingyan University remained calm and composed. "Nothing bad. We are desk mates, and it is reasonable for desk mates to help hold hands." As he said this, he stretched out his hand towards Lin Ran, as if signaling someone to hold it quickly. Lin Ran glanced at the school beauty sitting next to him. Seeing the other person's generous and frank expression, it seems as if he has no intention to hide at all. He thought about it and realized that was right. It was just a normal thing for his deskmate to hold hands and help clear the way. Even the school beauty deskmate was so calm about it, so he didn't have much to think about. Reasonable. So Lin Ran stopped hesitating and reached out to hold the hand of the school beauty's deskmate. He held the school beauty's fair and tender little hand in his palm. The touch and taste made even the mature soul of a man in his 30s feel slightly moved. Lin Ran quickly calmed himself down. "Don't think too much, they are just normal classmates holding hands. Very simple." Then he took the hand of the school beauty and his deskmate and led the way forward to squeeze into the crowd. At the same time, following behind Lin Ran. "Let your hand be held in the other's palm. Heart. Feel the warmth coming from your palms." The little man in Su Qingyan's heart smiled at Lin Ran, who was trying to squeeze through the crowd in front of him, and his mouth couldn't help but burst into laughter. "Holding my deskmate's hand again. Su Qingyan, you are so smart." He finally managed to fight his way out of the crowd. When Lin Ran finally arrived at the entrance of the convenience store with his school beauty deskmate, he was exhausted and sweating all over. It's so fucking difficult. Even the young body of an 18-year-old boy could hardly withstand such a surging crowd. Being a deskmate with a school beauty is not a job that most people can do. But it's the opposite of Lin Ran. Holding his hand and squeezing through the crowd in front of him, the campus beauty of Su Qingyan University looked calm and composed at the moment, and even seemed to be in a good mood. He walked into the store briskly with his hands behind his back and began to pick snacks and drinks from the rows of shelves. I bought the things quickly. After paying the bill at the counter, Su Qingyan walked up to Lin Ran carrying a bag of red stew-flavored potato chips and 2 bottles of iced Sprite. She handed one of the bottles to Lin Ran with a calm and composed look. Your remuneration. Lin Ran took it without hesitation and said, Brother, I was almost exhausted just now. It's not too much to drink a bottle of Sprite from your school beauty desk mate. Of course, he never thought about the treatment he just received. If it were other boys, they would probably be so envious that their eyes would turn green with envy. Not to mention the reward, they would probably want to pay money just for a chance to hold hands. Some people even looked at the bag of potato chips in the school beauty's desk mate's hand, feeling a bit unsatisfied. Why don't you buy 2 bags of potato chips too? The reward is never too much. The pretty girl from Su University raised her eyebrows slightly and said calmly. If you want to eat, you can eat together when you get back. When 2 people enjoy a bag of potato chips, and when each reaches into the potato chip bag, there will inevitably be some ambiguous physical contact that makes the heart beat faster. 100 clever tips to enhance interaction with your classmates. The scheming beauty of Bingshan School. The 2 drank Sprite and walked out of the canteen side by side, getting ready to go back to class. But before he had taken a few steps, he suddenly heard a voice. Qingyan. Follow the sound. I saw a tall, handsome, sunny and handsome boy, accompanied by a few followers, walking towards this side with a look of surprise on his face. The boy walked closer, ignoring the person next to Su Qingyan as if he were air, and spoke to Su Qingyan with a smile on his face and a familiar tone. Are you here to buy snacks too? That's great. It saves me from going to class 10 to look for you. Are you free at noon? Let's have a meal together. I'll treat you. The words fell. The boy did not wait for Su Qingyan's response. But then a voice sounded beside Su Qingyan. I'm sorry. As the voice was spoken, a figure suddenly took a step forward and stood right in front of Su Qingyan, blocking the tall and handsome boy's view. Protecting the school beauty and her deskmate behind her, Lin Ran looked at the tall boy and smiled. She's not available. Chapter 29. He is my flower guardian. The tall boy who invited Su Qingyan to dinner was named Su Jun. From class 33 of senior high school. He is considered a prominent figure in Yunnan Middle School. He is 1.82 meters tall and plays for the school basketball team. He has outstanding athletic talent. He is also a student of liberal arts and has excellent academic performance. In every monthly, midterm and final exam, he ranks among the top 5 or even top 3 in the liberal arts class of his grade. He has the nickname of a handsome academic tyrant. It can be said that he is a master of both literature and art. In school, not only his peers, but also a lot of younger and older classmates were his fans and admirers. But what really made this guy more famous? It is said that on the eve of his graduation from high school, he had an ambiguous relationship with a girl of the same grade, and even had an intimate relationship with her. As a result, this guy took advantage of the situation and walked away without admitting his mistake. When the girl was looking forward to officially announcing her relationship with him, his attitude towards her suddenly became cold and distant. The girl was heartbroken and took the initiative to muster up the courage to question Su Jun's feelings, but was coldly denied. We're just friends having fun. Why are you so serious? Finally, the girl couldn't stand the rumors from her classmates behind her back. She was so sad and desperate that she chose to commit suicide. He jumped from the school administration building. It became a tragedy. This incident even caused quite a stir in the entire Yunnan County, and several school leaders and education bureau leaders were dismissed. But Su Jun, the culprit, seemed to be unaffected and escaped quietly. In short, this guy is not a good person. The first time he saw the other person, Lin Ran recalled these things in his mind. In his previous life, he was a deskmate with the school beauty, and he had heard that Su Jun had actively pursued Su Qingyan. Fortunately, the school beauty's deskmate was always aloof and he didn't act too hypocritically towards her. In theory, there is no need to worry too much. But it's better to be safe than sorry. This kind of scumbag would think that any school beauty or classmate who has anything to do with him is dirty. What's more, Lin Ran thought about it and considered that after he was reborn in this life, his school beauty deskmate also did many things that she had never done in her previous life, and her personality seemed to have undergone some subtle changes. It is inevitable that when facing Su Jun, my attitude towards him will change from that in the previous life. As a deskmate, Lin Ran felt that it was his responsibility to help the campus beauty of Suqiao University avoid such possible risks and troubles. So, when the other party opens his mouth, he invited the school beauty to have lunch with him in a familiar manner. He stood up, protected the school beauty and his deskmate, smiled at Su Jun and said, "Excuse me. She's busy." Su Qingyan also recognized Su Jun's identity at the first moment. Same. As a reborn. She also quickly recalled the disgusting and dirty deeds related to Su Jun. Beneath the shiny surface. But it is the ugly inside that is disgusting and nauseating. Su Qingyan's eyes suddenly turned cold. Although she did not agree to Su Jun's pursuit and advances in her previous life, she still had some appreciation for Su Jun at first. But after being reborn in this life, I know the other person's true ugly face in advance. Nature. It will be impossible to give the other party any good face or chance. But she didn't expect that before she could even open her mouth, a figure suddenly stepped forward from the side and stood in front of her to protect her. Listening to the calm and composed words coming from the front, not only the other students around, but also Su Qingyan herself, the person involved, was a little stunned. The anger that had just arisen because of Su Jun was suddenly interrupted and dissipated a little. Su Qingyan couldn't help but look up and down at Lin Ran's back in front of her.